don't know if it's going to... It's not as wide angle as I was hoping. Where's James? Is he going to introduce me?
He's doing some pots.
Has he really gone really shy? Are you going to introduce me?
I'm going to give it a go again.
If you stand on the Tropica bags.
Oh, what, you're filming me as well? Oh, well.
Okay. Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Thanks for coming, guys. Just want to say thank you to the sponsors. So that is Tropica, ONF and the Waza. Just hope you enjoy this workshop by George Farmer. If you'd like to put your hands together for George.
Right, cool. Can someone just check that screen? Why can you see my face?
Yes, just a bit.
Yeah, because my bottom on the way.
No, just really low then.
I like that.
Needs to tip forwards a bit like that.
Can you adjust it for me? Sounds like you know what you're doing.
If he's sitting
If you unlock this here,
like that.
lock that there, you can,
Oh, gotcha.
and then lock it there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Are you sitting or standing?
I don't know yet. What's the jacket?
Your head's off there completely.
Is it? So I have to crouch like this.
I reckon that's bang on, yeah.
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 Does that look good as well, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are streaming live, no swearing, everyone. I know you're really rowdy, you guys. Thanks for coming, everyone. I really appreciate it, and I'm aware the tickets sold out very quick, so congratulations for getting here. It's really great to be here. It's been a couple of years since my last workshop. The pandemic has hit everyone at different levels for different reasons, and for me, restriction and travelling actually hit me quite hard. Mentally, and thank God, very grateful to the companies that still supported me, and I could still work from home, still create content, lots of live streams and stuff. But there's nothing quite like the human connection that you get through these workshops. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I do want this to be as engaging as possible for you. I want you to learn as much as you can. So please feel free to fire questions at me throughout the stream, throughout the workshop. I don't know what I'm going to create yet, so this is going to be interesting for everyone, as well as me. Got some beautiful materials. It's going to be great fun. I'm so excited. I want to say thank you actually to Horizon for inviting me up again. It's become my kind of second home up north, and I'm really grateful to you guys, and especially because the northeast didn't have anything really aquascaping focused, so it's really great that aquascaping is now very prominent, in this part of the UK, and it's really great to see, the apparent success that you're enjoying, and you're very lucky to have such a great store local to you. Apart from the guy from Manchester. That is a trek, isn't it? Okay. So yeah, thanks for coming. We're going to have great fun. This is a water box tank. Where is it?
Yeah, water box, 3620.
Okay. It's 90 centimetres, 45, 45, or 50, 45? 45, 45. So it's a regular 90p that most people know. Holds about 180, 200 litres, 50 US gallons or so. Supplied with the ONF Knights, which they're supporting this workshop, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's supplied by them.
Okay, that's great. We're going to be using Tropica aquarium plants, of course. Some beautiful hardscape, Tropica soil. Might use some cosmetic sand, I'm not sure yet. And a Waza filtration, I guess. Yeah. Biomaster. Is it a 600 or?
Yes,
600. Okay. Great. So beautiful rimless tank, low iron glass. Perfect for aquascaping. You can look into the tank. You can have stuff coming out the top of the tank. Sorry, I'm going to scratch that out here. So, yeah, perfect for aquascaping. Look around you. These tanks are designed to show off the aquascape to the best of its ability. There are disadvantages. We've already covered jumping fish before we started the stream. You can get evaporation. I live in a hard water area, so when the water evaporates, it leaves behind this ugly kind of stain, like a lime scale mark. But, you know, if you're into aquascaping, you almost have to try a rimless tank. They are just extra special. It's all about eliminating as much distraction as possible. You know, look around, you've got these glass pipes or maybe stainless steel pipes going in and out of the tank. You've got sometimes no background or an illuminated background, so you can create this extra sense of depth. And it's all about kind of showcasing, you know, this is like the canvas, if you like, and it's one of the best canvases you can get for aquascaping. I think it's 10 8mm glass, almost invisible silicone. You can get, anyone that's been aquascaping for any length of time will know that you can get the green algae build up on the clear silicone. Top tip, if you get some kitchen roll or toilet paper, toilet roll it up into like a long sausage and then soak it in like a thick bleach, use some rubber gloves, and then literally wedge it into the corner of the tank as much as you can and then leave it there for 24 hours. That contact of the bleach against the silicone will just absolutely clean it up. Obviously don't do that with any livestock in your area. But yeah, if the gentleman there is talking about rescaping your tank from scratch, that'd be a good, if you do have the green algae build-up, that's a top tip to get rid of that on the silicone.
My wife loves it because she started doing it around the kitchen sink, and me too. So to treat her as well.
There's a winner. So that's the system really. Low iron glass, most of you may have heard of it. It's actually low iron, it means it's got less iron in it. So when you look through the cross section here, you can see like a light blue colour. I don't think there are any regular, in fact embarrassingly it's the Algae tanks that have got regular float glass. So when you look down, you see like a dark green colour. So it's not as transparent, literally, it isn't see-through. Otherwise they are bringing out low iron on their new range. They're bringing out a scaper line in fact, which is exciting, rimless tanks. Helps if I remove the lid. At least no one's watching. How do I look in the shot? This is just a bit weird, like kneeling on one knee. But
If you're not comfy.
I've been worse. Okay, any questions on the tank itself? Or the lighting? I don't know much about the light. ONF, it's an RGB LED, so the actual the red, green, blue and white all are kind of integrated into the same chip. So you get this quite nice saturation. As you look at something like the Twin Star, I don't know if you guys can see, there's actually a range of different coloured LEDs separate rather than integrated into the same chip. Hopefully that makes sense.
Is that a separate screen at the back? Is that a light screen or is that back out of the tank?
That's a great question.
It's just the foggy screen.
Frosted.
Frosted
Yeah.
screens, yeah. Do you sell them? Frosted
Yeah,
screens?
it's the ADA ones.
About £1 million, are they? Half a million.
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah. Are you doing the light screens as well, the ADA light screens?
Yeah, so we've got one to go on that tank over there, which is in progress.
Yeah.
And then we've got the light ground as well.
Yeah.
That's the regular light ground, which isn't on at the minute, and then we've got the RGB one as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty cool, the light ground stuff. So, yeah, it's a good point actually. The illuminated backgrounds are next level. You know, if you want to take your aquascaping to that extra aesthetic level, I would just consider your living space though. You know, sometimes these really clean cut, super modern lines don't necessarily suit everyone's living space. So, you know, you might want to go for something a bit more classic with the lids. You know, that's kind of what I've got going on in my office space at home at the moment. But yeah, rimless tanks, advantages, disadvantages, very popular for aquascaping for obvious reasons. This model is a good size, 3 foot or 90 centimetres. Not too big, not too small. It is quite a big investment if you're a beginner. I'd suggest, I don't know what the retail is of the tank and cabinet here.
About 650, I think.
650 quid, and then you've still got to get your light, your filter, you know, it can end up being quite expensive. If you're a beginner, you might want to invest in, say, an all-in-one system. The Star line there is a great beginner's tank, I'm a huge fan of that. And if you want to be a bit more fancy, you can go for the high line. But something like this is a great starter tank. You know, this kind of size here, 2 foot, about 100 litres or so. And you've got really good depth as well. Love this. Love this scape baby. Where is it? Are you pleased with it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Reminds me of Adam Pascal.
A lot of people have said that.
Yeah. It's his stone, isn't it? Probably. So
Yeah, it is, yeah.
shout out to Adam if he's watching. Okay, that's it really. Filtration. Do you know about filters? External canister filters. We can talk about those in more detail later. I think you'll hear more from the Aquascaping talk, aren't you? Any questions on the tanks?
That residue you can get on the rimless George.
Yeah.
I just get a blade and a scrub. Is there any hacks or tricks for getting rid of that easier?
Yeah. Do you guys do the Denolay Cleanator?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an algae kind of sponge, and it's got like this steel wire wool.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't scratch the glass. It does, after a while, actually, the tiny little wire wool thingies can come off and you see them in your tank.
Right.
I think they're okay. I think you could probably use a magnet or something to get rid of them if you wanted to.
Magnet fish.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I did see the other day, which is cool. You know those magnets you can get on telescopic thingies? Did you know aqua soil or tropical soil contains so much iron that you can actually take out the individual grains? So a lot of the time, you see the tank over there with the open cosmetic sand foreground. A lot of the time, the Amano shrimp will grab the grains of sand, soil and pop them onto the sand, and you see these random, grains of soil everywhere. We get this telescopic magnet, and you can literally, it's a good fun, I think. Makes you vote.
It's easier than siphoning out your sand out as well.
Well, exactly. Yeah, but that was a top tip. I can't remember where I saw it on Instagram. Yeah. Cool. Should we start scaping? I'm just like delaying the scaping because I don't know what I'm doing. We can talk about tanks and equipment and plants, but actually have to do some scaping now. Okay, we're going to start with the soil. Anyone that's seen any of my videos knows all about this. It's a great product, I'm paid by Tropica to say that, but it genuinely is. I've been using it for years. I use it in most of my clients' tanks. It's a proven performer. It's a very consistent product. Some of the manufacturers of soil, you can get kind of bad batches, but as far as I know, this is very, very consistent and a very popular and, like I say, proven performer. Feeds the plant roots, doesn't need any base layers. You don't need a nutrient-rich base layer like you do with some other brands, and you don't need to top it off with anything. You don't need to top it off with sand or anything like that. What we do have though is two different types. We've got the normal type, and we've got the powder type. And we're very grateful for the delivery today because we didn't have any. We don't have any, did we?
Oh no, completely.
Nicole was like phoning me last night. George, we've got no soil. I'm like, oh dear. She's 88 then.
Bare bum.
But we got it. So two types, normal type and powder type. It's exactly the same product. The powder type is a finer grain, and that's really good for planting your more delicate rooted plants. So I normally put the normal type on the bottom and then top off with the powder type. And we are using more than likely 100% the Tropical 1-2 grow today. So the powder type will definitely come in handy. I'm genuinely really nervous about this. Okay, good.
Have you ever turned up without a plan before, George?
I've never turned up with a plan.
No, nice.
So, but it's been 2 years since I've done this thing like live. So, can I have some scissors? Yeah.
Like make sure all your teeth.
Yeah. Which are these ones? Okay, you don't need that one just yet. So, you can. So the more advanced scapers would potentially, play around with their hardscape without any soil in there, and take, weeks, some people months, playing around with their hardscape. We've got a good example here. I'm guessing this has been, this is just going to be kind of, evolved every day. Someone will come and have a look. That could do a tweak in here. That could do labbing there. That's taken away there. And it's a process that you should really enjoy. It's a creative process. And it's just part of the joy is that creation of something brand new, I think. But yeah, the more you get into the hardscaping, the more you kind of want to use different techniques. You might want to. Some people will even use like filter media in nets or tights to just kind of bulk up the background. and then they'll position their like large stones on that, and then they'll put the soil around that. So you can kind of bulk out. You don't have to necessarily use 100% soil on the bottom. You can use bulking agents. So just make sure they're inert. They're not going to affect the water chemistry. Obviously safe for your livestock. But that's something to bear in mind. If you want to start getting really fancy and going like super steep, backgrounds, that sort of thing, there are options out there rather than just using a solid kind of soil.
Would you need to clean that ever, or can you just leave it in there?
Clean it?
If you did filter media, in the bags,
Oh,
would you
yeah.
ever need to take it out?
No, just leave it in there, yeah, because it will just get colonised with bacteria. It's not going to have any ill effects on the aquarium at all.
Do you use anything to prevent sloping?
Not really. If I do a steep slope background, which I don't do very often myself, they're normally iwagumi, and I'm normally using rocks, and they're kind of half buried, and they act as a support. You can cut up pieces of rigid plastic and kind of insert them. If you imagine ice cream carton and cut kind of 3 or 4 inch kind of rectangles, you could slot them in.
Can I ask about the tropical soil? What makes it a complete system rather than like the ADA line where they recommend lots of supplements? Is there any difference? Would tropical benefit from supplements in the same way as the Amazonian?
Yeah, I mean, the ADA product is a more comprehensive system, I should say, and you'll potentially get more nutrients for a longer period. But I think the fundamental difference, it's a great question actually, I think the fundamental difference between the complete ADA substrate system and a regular system like this is the ADA substrate system is designed to be used with the liquid fertiliser system. So it's an integrated system. You should get everything ADA, and it's like a plug and play. So the ADA substrate system with the power sand or the power sand special, and topping it off with the regular soil, you're getting it's really relying on that heavy nutrient load to feed the plants, and normally relying on a leaner dosing of liquid fertiliser. Whereas when we're using the Tropica system, which is just literally that on its own, and then either the premium or the specialised nutrition, that's a much simpler, cheaper, and arguably just as effective way to grow your plants.
Just more reliant on that liquid fertiliser rather than quite nutrient.
Yeah, exactly. And with the ADA substrate system, you actually have different fertilisers to add at different times of the aquascape's life to counter the nutrient depletion of the substrate system. So it becomes relatively complex, I think, which is why I like to keep it simple with the soil and one type of fertiliser. It's perfectly fine. The ADA substrate system and fertiliser system and system as a whole is a beautiful, beautifully designed system. It's just, it's obviously a luxury product line range, and you do pay for that as well. I'm not criticising it at all. It's just a different system. I would never criticise anyone for buying a Ferrari versus a Ford. It's just what your tastes are, what your budget is.
What would the lifespan be of that soil?
It really depends, actually. Depends on your plants. Depends on the energy levels that you're running. So the more plants that are growing, the faster those plants are growing, the more nutrients they'll need. So the more they'll take up from the soil. But if you're using liquid fertilisers regularly, which I recommend people do, I add fertilisers every day, the plants are also taking in nutrients through their leaves. So they're not taking up so much through the soil. So by kind of that double approach, feeding through the roots, feeding through the leaves, you're kind of spoiling the plant, and then the nutrient content of your soil is actually going to last a lot longer. So arguably you could keep a soil system running for years and years in terms of nutrients, because eventually you'll just be getting nutrients from the liquid fertiliser. What can happen is after a couple of years or so, the soil tends to kind of degrade. It depends a lot on the livestock you're keeping. Any kind of burying fish, loaches, Corydoras, that degradation is probably going to occur more quickly because you've got mechanical kind of movement of the soil all the time. In those situations, you'll just start to see cloudy water after a while. A great example, in fact, is for those that may remember the green machine. Remember the green machine? That huge cube tank. And towards the end of its life, there was always like a slight cloudiness to it. And I was thinking the other day about it for some reason, and I remembered it had a load. I think it had a load of loaches in there. And I think the soil was, that kind of old. It turns into like a bit of a muddy, kind of powdery substance, and then the action of the fish kind of burying, it's just going to, these little pockets of dust come up. So, long answer to the question. So, depends how long.
I guess creating extra skids in it has the same effect. While you're planting it, while you move it, while you
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm in a luxury position where I get the soil provided to me and the plants and etc. So I tend to just completely do a new tank from scratch. And if I was a hobbyist and paying everything regular, I would definitely reuse the soil at least for 2 or 3 scapes, at least a couple of years.
Would you consider using like root tabs at all if you were to do it after a couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, root tabs are great. The tropical nutrition capsules are really great. Top tip: if you pierce a little hole in the gelatin capsule with a drawing pin or a whatever pin, it will stay under the soil better because they kind of, some of you may have experienced, they try to float up a bit. So, top tip for you. Okay, we've put a couple of bags in. I think that's okay for now. That's kind of protecting the base. We could use, a lot of scapers will use maybe egg crate. I don't know if any of you heard of this. It's like a plastic, hard plastic mesh that you can put on the base of the aquarium. A lot of coral keepers use it. You can use that to protect the glass. But it's not my tank, so I don't care. I'll be very careful. When I did my Algae Starline Algae Highline 175 for my lower cichlids, and there's, some of you may have seen the scape, but there's probably about 40 kilos of rock like on one tiny area of the glass, and I'm just waiting for it to. An excuse for a new tank, I guess. Okay, right, time for the interesting bit now. We're going to do an irigumi layout. Okay, so at the moment, I might change my mind halfway through. So rock only, and I haven't done one of these for ages, and it's a material that I've never actually used before like this. And I'm just making excuses already that it's going to be crap. It's not going to be crap, it's going to be brilliant. So what we do is, what I do usually, is get a big selection of the materials that you kind of know you want to use. So here we've got some beautiful millennium stone, millennium rock. It's similar, to me it's almost like a cross between a mini landscape and a Frodo stone. I really like it. It's got these beautiful textures, these gouges out here. And it's, when you're choosing your stone, you're really looking at it for character, almost like personality. I'm wearing this t-shirt. A stone has a heart. It sounds a bit cheesy, but this stone is probably millions of years old. Hundreds of thousands of years old. It's been. I don't know if there's any geology experts out there. They can probably tell me more about it. But it's. I think we're really privileged to be able to work with these natural materials, and we're in a beautiful time right now where there are aquascaping stores that supply beautiful materials like this. When I started the hobby about 20 years ago, this would have just been absolutely unheard of to see something like this. I had to travel 200 miles to get my first CO2 kit, and now we're in a very like a golden age of aquascaping. So I'm digressing. It's a beautiful stone. Pick the best stones you can, take your time picking them and hoard them. If you've got enough living space, enough garden space at home, and consider just every time you go to an aquascaping shop or any aquarium shop which stocks hardscape, you have a good look around and maybe just choose one piece and then keep it in your collection. And then when you get to rescape your next tank, you've got a much bigger, choice of materials. So beautiful rock. We've got 5 or 6 pieces. I always start off with the biggest piece and then work my way down in size. So I do think that's the biggest piece. So now we need to figure out where in the tank it goes, so kind of left to right, and then I need to figure out what axis, how do I actually want to see that rock, what angle do I want to see it from, So we need to look at it at all angles, X, Y, Z axis, rotate it all the way around. And what's speaking to you the most? What side grabs your attention? Really think about, really kind of connecting with your gut instinct here. You're looking at it and you're thinking, how's that going to go? And the more you do this sort of thing, the easier it becomes. And I'm running out of breath because this is really heavy. I just realised. What was my voice sounding funny? So I'm just looking at it and thinking, what's the most striking, natural position? Sorry to put my back to your... Okay, so I'm just popping up there for now. And then you can have a sit down and have a ponder and think, does that look right? Does that look natural? It might not look natural just yet, but as you add more stuff to it, it can look more natural. So consider that. You might not get the perfect position or even the right stone right away. So we have to start somewhere, right? So we'll start with that. And you may have noticed it's not directly central, so I'm using the rule of thirds. That's my go-to compositional guideline. So when we're thinking about our focal point, so this is a focal point, this is the main focal point, it's the biggest stone, it's the one that's going to probably catch your eye the most. So it's really important to position that appropriately. So what we do, we use the rule of thirds. Most of you may have heard of it. When you look at your smartphone, sometimes there's a grid with intersecting lines, vertically and horizontally, in thirds. And when those lines intersect, that's where, ideally, your focal point may wish to be, to get the nicest kind of aesthetic balance. If we...
Sorry, do you ever actually mark on the aquarium? I've seen on green aquas videos and things like that. People put in mark on the aquarium where
it's all fancy stuff, that is. They wear gloves and stuff as well. Yeah, not that bad. Hi guys. No, I don't do any of that. It's great. These are great guidelines, and what I'm saying is everyone's got their own way, and mine's quite simple. I'll keep it simple. I'm known for my simple aquascapes, and I make no apology for that, because hopefully everyone can learn from it and replicate maybe, and it's all about making it accessible. I think it's great, and I think marking with felt tip pens and wearing gloves and all this fancy stuff is great. And I've got nothing, the green aqua guys are new really, so they know I'm just having fun with them. But they are really fancy. Yeah. Okay, that's okay, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but we have to start somewhere. I'm going to go for another really big piece here. Now this is quite an ugly piece, and it doesn't really kind of match the textures of this one very well. But the reason I got this one, it's actually quite flat, and it's actually a really good kind of base stone, literally, to put on the base of the soil, and then you can actually put another stone on top to get extra height. So that's a good tip. You might not have to use such an expensive, sorry Nicole, stone. You could just use something in the garden, because it's not going to be visible, right? You could use something plastic that's definitely going to sink, that's non-toxic. But just something to think about. You can get your height. We're talking about maybe net types or something filled with filter media. This is like the equivalent, just bulking out your height. But we might not use it. I'm just going to pop it in there. I've got an idea. So now we need to get next biggest. And we've got a lot more soil to go in as well, so we can kind of make it a bit more natural. I'll show you how we do that later. Okay, so this is a beautiful piece, but it's got more of a rounded texture when we compare it to this one. So this is a good learning point. So although this is Millennium Rock or Millennium Stone, just because it's called the same product, you do have like different families in the same types. Like Frodo Stone, you can get sort of more brown colours or more grey. This has got more of a rounded texture. This is more of a jaggedy texture. And that can kind of work in our favour, or it can work against us. We just need to make sure those textures are kind of balanced. So for now, I'm just going to pop this on top of this one. Okay, so this is kind of turning into the main stone now. We've got a lot of height here. It's really important when you're doing irigumi. If you're doing a kind of classic irigumi where you're using a main stone, it's really important to get enough height. So we've definitely got that with this stone here. I'm just figuring out if there's a nicer. That's really odd and unnatural. Any questions?
So as you lay these rocks, George, I'm just kind of thinking some of the aesthetics is nice when something breaks the water, and it's generally always like the wood and bits of plant. Would it ever work in your view, rocks breaking the water, or would that be?
Yeah, it's been done before. Yeah, irigumis with a shallow tank with rocks coming out. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a great thing about aquascaping. Is you do what you want.
Just say.
As long as you have fun doing it. There's guidelines, right? There's guidelines to follow, and they're important, to hopefully achieve kind of some aesthetic normality, if you like, or balance. But at the end of the day, it's an art form, and you're the artist, and it's up to you what you do. It's quite easy to, we live in a consumer age where we're just being bombarded, aren't we, with beautiful images of everything, and sometimes that's a bit unrealistic, and sometimes it's nice to just do things for yourself. Definitely getting a good workout today. So I'm quite happy with that as the main stone. I'm just thinking how I can kind of balance it out a bit. I'm trying to. It's got such beautiful textures. I'm just mindful of making sure they all work together. not feeling it at all. Sorry. So this is a lesson. Make sure you plan your workshops better. So I'm going to go a bit different. Sometimes it's really, you can get kind of stuck in a loop when you, sometimes it's good to just reset. I do like some of those stones, excuse me. So much is out. Like that. I was eyeing this up earlier.
So everyone want a drink and food break, or not going to play, or?
See you guys, I'm gonna. Is everyone hungry and thirsty? 6:10. Why don't you have a bit of a break? Yeah, I'll carry on. And people can just talk to me if they want to. Like them, not everyone has to go on a break. Yeah. So it's the same principle with the wood, really. You just roll the thirds, and then you've got this nice bit sticking out.
George, do you find when you plan, you execute what you want more? Do you kind of prefer that kind of freestyle approach?
Yeah, I always prefer freestyle, yeah, very rarely.
Yeah.
Very rarely on the plan, to be honest. So this is nice, this is going to be... I'm going to do trim 3 efficiently. Alright, mate?
Yeah, my kneecaps are good. Yeah. Oh, you're paying customers, you've got to relax in these things.
Oh, yeah.
Where you get such tiny water volume and you try to do it and then take like that, you take the water out and that's the water check.
It's in these areas, the system is easy.
You must be quite good when you don't have the luxury of time sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny, really.
I'm not educated in open check.
Oh, really? Oh, right. Oh, you just talk about this. Well, someone who's organised it.
George, are you starting the podcasts again?
Yeah. No. Yes and no. It's got so many other things at the moment. It's about prioritising. Yeah, I would like. I do enjoy them. Emma enjoys them too, but they're quite hard work. So I have to I have to do them twice really because I have to educate Emma. So we do like a pretend one, so she knows what she's talking about, and then we do a real one.
I did wonder.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a great problem. It's not been the same since he left home. It's a long way to he's in London now. It's a rolling. It's not been the same since he's in London.
Where did everyone hear about their workshop then? How did was it online or had word of mouth? Facebook.
So that's 24 hours.
It throws you off immediately, doesn't it?
So strange, because Emma was on like an important work call, and I knew she was using her, so I knew I couldn't take it.
Yeah.
But I had to take Tommy to one of my in-laws,
Yeah.
because Emma's away from the list.
I would say.
So I had no way of getting it in. It was so stressful. I can't tell you. But I got it's sort of in the end. Yeah, I didn't need it. We're using it quite a lot now. It's a bit. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Test for a workshop.
Oh yeah, similar, isn't it? Yeah.
Now in the house we've got a 90
Smaller bit.
then we've got 60 twin star. And then there's a 60p, then a 60p here. Just like an extra. Just like a potato with part of one plant. Massive. Maximum change to apple, so that's not a water. 6 hours. So it's that 10 and how are you? Then I have a problem with my access. And then you want to see this thing break. Oh, I tell you, I was like, yeah.
Right in line here, kind of. Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
George.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I've heard you and maybe other people on YouTube mention about being mindful in Hardscape of creating pockets where like crud can collect and whatnot, and that causing issues. Is that something you have to bear in mind, and is there any like things you keep an eye out for?
Yeah, it's never normally an issue. All I do with every water change is give everything a good wave. You know, like stroke the plants, give a wave around. Some people use a turkey-based step to, you know, simultaneously blow the crap up and then siphon it out at the same time. But no, it's just part of the maintenance, just part of the water changes, limiting the what you're trying to do is limit the build-up of organic waste,
Yeah.
basically. So that's occurring with collection of stuff in the substrate, in the filter, in the water. You know, it's all about kind of keeping everything fresh. That's why you do the water changes, keep the filter fairly clean, and it's important in every system to keep everything relatively clean if you want to avoid nuisance algae.
Yeah.
Basically, as soon as you start neglecting the maintenance, that's when algae creeps in generally.
How did you cope with your last job in obviously having prolonged periods away from home and still looking after things, or did you close things down?
I just close things down, yeah. And now I've trained a couple of young couple near me to do this maintenance when I'm away. Yeah, so yeah, I used to have to strip them down.
So it must have been like hard trying to keep things running, and then obviously trying to find people to go and feed livestock for you. And
yeah, exactly. And I was, there wasn't anyone doing the same stuff as me back then, so it was pretty. Yeah, it's quite. It was so lonely, but I just didn't have mates or anyone interested in.
Was that one of the sort of the factors in sort of starting UCAPS then?
UCAPS was an interesting one because it was almost. It was never really an intention. It was a gentle nudge by Tom Barr, who runs the bar. I think it still does actually. The bar report, and that's a really popular online resource for parted tanks. And he invited us to have a sub forum on his forum, and that's where it all started. And it got really popular. And then so we created our own version, our own website, and it's gone really, it's grown really well. Okay, it's kind of irrigumi. You can see what I've done. I've used this beautiful piece of wood. We talk about hardscaping speaking to you. This really caught my attention. I kind of instinctively knew it fit really well in the tank. It spans almost the whole length of the tank. And now the original idea was to go for a tree on the tree trunk and roots coming down. I couldn't really find the suitable pieces of wood, but I thought I'd try a different concept of actually using the Sprodo stone almost like the roots coming down. So it's got this natural flow. And then we can plant our foreground plants, of course, transitional plants around the stones, maybe some small epiphytes. The temptation would be to, like I normally do, put a huge Java fern there. But you've spoiled, you've got so much lovely detail around here, we don't want to lose that. So if we did use any epiphytes, I would go for something relatively small texture. Maybe mosses would look great in here. I am mindful it might float. Does this float usually?
Yeah.
We put a stone on top maybe.
Yeah, you can stuff them in like the ball in the background.
Yeah. So that is, it was a very simple hardscape process. I'm sorry that I didn't deliver on my irrigumi. I have done them before, I promise. There is a couple of video tutorials on how to do it as well. But it's important that we create something strong. I'm mindful I want to create something beautiful for the store, something that's easily replicatable. Is that a word? Replicatable. Repeatable, that's better. Yeah, something that's repeatable. And it's a good example of how we've only used 4 pieces of hardscape, with 3 stones and 1 bit of wood. And you can immediately see that's created a very high impact layout. And it's going to be relatively easy to create a strong aquascape now because, the backbone is there, isn't it? Very strong, very distinctive. Loads of room to attach mosses, small epiphytes like we discussed. Foreground carpeting plants around here, maybe a nice complex texture carpeting plants around the foreground. And then some, I reckon, go really crazy and have bushy stems coming down like this, like a concave layout would look good.
Would you consider any emergent programs after the truck?
No. Simple answer. I think we'll keep everything underwater. There's just the tip of the trunk is just kind of in line. I've maybe have some moss creeping up. I like moss as it kind of it grows out of the water. It's quite pretty. It is quite heavy, isn't it? Hopefully that. Oh, that's fancy. Thank you. No, this is a rare treat that I drink full sugar Pepsi. So yeah, I'm normally like really anti-sugar and stuff, but today is a different day. So I'll tell you about my car.
Pepsi Max, George, if you don't like sugar.
No, I'm enjoying the sugar. Let's start speaking at a million mile an hour in a minute. So, any questions on the hardscape? I know I kind of did rush it in essence. We do want to go home at some point today. But very simple, bold. You know, this is a good example of you don't need to. I mean, these are beautiful layouts, right? But very complex hardscape layouts. It's probably not ideal for beginners. You know, something like this, a beginner can quite easily achieve. You know, it's not cheap. You know, this is not going to be a cheap hardscape. It is what it is. It's good quality. Fills up the tank. It's an investment. You know, your hardscape will last you potentially a lifetime. I've still got stones. You know, I actually know all of the. Believe it or not, it sounds really weird. I know every single stone I have, and I know now when I create a new layout, I know that stone will fit there. And that's the great thing about when you get into a hobby so much, you connect with everything in it. You know, whether it's the pieces of wood that you're holding, stones. You know, you build up a knowledge of the plants, and the more you get into it, the more the more you soak up. So, yeah, I think we've talked about hardscape enough. Have we had all the plants prepared now?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I need to change all the species.
First thing Jen said, you better not change.
Do we have completely new species? No, I'm joking.
You can change your mind.
I'm not going to be horrible here. Anyway, you can find the space. There we go. You can see that Nathan left that note for me.
Oh, I know.
Rude. He's so rude, isn't he?
I don't really understand it, to be honest.
I never understand Nathan. So these are invisible plants. They're new off the shelves. You've heard of Emperor's New Clothes, is that Emperor's New Plants?
Is that this big rubby at the moment?
Yeah.
Invisible plants.
I've just thrown a load of plants away. So, kindly prepared a load of plants. Thank you so much. All Tropica 1-2 Grow. And I love Tropica 1-2 Grow. They're my favourite plants of all time because they're so easy to use. They're fresh, guaranteed to be free from algae, pesticides, snails, disease. I would recommend getting them as fresh as you can from your supplier, i.e. Horizon Aquatics in our case. They do have a good shelf life, but the fresher you get them, the better they'll be, basically. Some species last longer than others, but you can just do a visual examination of the pot, and you'll soon, you'll be able to tell if they're fresh or not.
Before they're potted, George, because I know you've been out to Tropica, are they grown in some type of big vats? Like, how does that work before they're put in the pot?
It's top secret. No, it's not. They're grown in their tiny. In fact, they're grown in kind of medium-sized kind of tubs like this, but tiny individual cells of the plant, and then they're grown like that, and then those are then put into smaller things, and then they're grown.
Laboratory.
Yeah, exactly that. And Tropica have just increased their production facility for the 1-2 Grow. I think it's the future of aquarium plants. Is that Monte Carlo? I think did I get some? Yeah. So we'll do all the foreground first. So we've got Marsilea Cuba. Oh, is that Elatine Hydropiper?
Yeah, there is that, yeah.
Nice. Gratolia the spatula. Yeah, cheers. Making me use my brain.
Product knowledge.
It is product knowledge. Okay, so we've got a beautiful selection of foreground species. Starting off with one of the. If I always get asked what carpeting plant can I grow without CO2 injection, and I always say Alanthium tenellum green. Beautiful plant. Is it actually one of the few carpeting species that will actually stay short in low lighting. The lower the light, the shorter it stays. So for those that haven't planted a plant before, you get your tweezers, hold it near the roots, and then pop it in your soil, let go of the tweezers, and normally it tries to come out, which is really annoying. I need some more soil in there, I just realised. But if you do struggle, when you put your plant in and you take the tweezers out and it comes out, top tip, just pop it in, get your other finger, and then it stays in like that, okay? But we need a bit more soil in there. So, have we got a spray bottle? Just do you mind just giving them? Oh no, you're alright. Stay there. You've got your camera.
I'll do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I've got alarms on the carpet.
Yeah. Yeah.
How would you best recommend like trimming that back?
I've had really great results just trimming it hard, and also just pushing it. Be quite brutal. Just push it down. It's called mechanical retardation, and it slows it down that way. So I had a carpet of it in my Aquascaping 1200, which is quite high energy, and I never replanted it, never did anything. I just literally kept trimming it back or pushing it down, and it just got to the point where it will get to a point where it kind of smothers itself, but it will take months and months and months.
Spread your watch, George.
No worries, mate. It's water resistant to 20. It's water resistant to 50 metres.
It's looking a bit dry.
These are the best watches in the world, Casio. The old F91W, highly recommended. £15 Amazon. Other online stores are available. I do know my plants, you don't... Handy. Cheers. More soil. So we'll do the powder now because we're planting the tissue culture 1-2 grow, which has normally very delicate root structure. So in order for the roots to grip better, we can use the powder type. Thank you. Good job you're in. Oh, fancy.
George, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you think about the dry start method?
Waste of time. Yeah. I'd rather just get it flooded, get the plants growing as they're supposed to grow underwater. My personal. I think it's useful to like have fun with and experiment and just kind of understand the plants. If you want to kind of see them grow like immersed and then go to their submersed state. But the danger is, I get my plants from Tropica and they're fresh and they're designed to, if they're grown in hydroponically in a pot, they're designed to be planted in an aquarium and adapted underwater. They're not designed to be grown again in another different immersed environment. Now the ones who grow are effectively grown underwater because they're in a gel or a liquid media, so they're almost adapted to submersed growth. So when you try to do a dry start method with those, they can really struggle. So in my view, it's just better to plant and fill up and enjoy your aquarium and water. I prefer seeing, you know, if you want a dry start, just do terrarium and don't flood it. Basically. It's fun though, it is fun, and it sounds like I'm poo-pooing it. I think it's a good exercise to do for people to learn about how plants adapt and stuff. Some plants are much more agreeable to dry start than others. Monte Carlo seems to be very good. A lot of people have success with Monte Carlo carpets, dry start. But the risk is when you do dry start, when you flood, you know, you potentially get a lot of melt. You know. So what was, you know, arguably what was the point? You know, if you're going to get that melt anyway. I have had fun dry start with moss. So I did like a yogurt blender method. I think it was Physidans and Ricardia, which Ricardia isn't a moss, but anyway. Put them in a blender with some yogurt, some rainwater, I think, and then painted it on a bit of wood, and then dry started that. That was really good because you blend in the moss, you're chopping it up basically really, really fine into millions of pieces, and then when you're painting it, depending on the texture you're painting onto, those tiny little moss fronds, the tiny particle of moss is called a frond, will, you know, attach quite well to the hardscape, and then you can get really intricately kind of attached moss rather than just the usual method of using super glue or tying on with thread. So that's something to look into maybe. The dry start with moss is quite interesting. Call it another type. They call it moss graffiti. A lot of people do it in landscape gardening, in fact. Deliberately like growing moss on walls and stuff, dry stone walls.
Did you say blend it with yogurt?
Yeah, the yogurt is a special strain of bioactive yogurt. I think it's something acidifolus, I can't remember the strain, but it prevents, you can get a lot of fungal build up with dry start, and then the theory is that the yogurt prevents the fungal build up.
I see your video the other day where you saw Courtney's edible tank.
Oh yeah.
Do you know doing some of the usual like macro algae tank?
Yeah, I've done macro algae tank before. There's so many things to do, isn't there, in the hobby? And for me, it's a question of prioritising. Yeah, so I'd love to do macroalgae again. I'd love to do edible Hardscape. But yeah, it's all about where's best place to serve aquascaping. For me, it's not about my hobby per se, it's about aquascaping. Trying to serve everyone with aquascaping as best I can. So to do that I have to think about the style of scapes that I do and the kind of content that I make. Yeah. At the moment it's workshops obviously, book stuff, my own YouTube. I'm really rambling, aren't I?
How does that impact?
I think the sugar's just kicked in, but it's made me a bit ill. So.
How does that impact though, aquascaping on a personal level for you? Do you still enjoy it, or is it?
Yeah, I love it.
I
know it for different reasons. I used to be motivated by, I think the most beginners have the childlike curiosity of creating something beautiful and the joy you actually get to see the plants grow, and that excitement of discovering something new that you've created. I still get that, but I don't get it. I get it in different ways now. But I get my main motivation is helping others with aquascaping, because it's really important for me to know that I'm doing something bigger than myself. Otherwise, I feel like, what's the point? You know? And I had that feeling in the military, and especially now with current stuff in Afghanistan. It's just like, what's the point? You know? But now with aquascaping, I know what the point is. I know that I'm helping others enjoy a beautiful hobby, that fundamental level, and that's where I get my motivation and my most joy. is connecting other people with aquascaping. But I still deeply love the process, and I recently rescaped a Style Line 85 that the same tank as that one in white as a high energy setup, and planted really heavily with lots of different stem plants, loads of different types of plants, loads of light, loads of CO2, big water changes every day, and I could physically see the plants growing every day. Every day there was growth, and I would just. I've never looked at an aquarium for so long in my day, and I've got a discus tank like literally behind my desk, and I've got other lovely aquariums, but this high tech, it's not particularly high tech, high energy scape was just really fun to watch, and it was quite nostalgic actually, to get that fun element back, and the joy of seeing the plants grow, the joy of seeing the oxygen bubbles forming on the leaves, the joy of watching the fish, go about their business. And it was a really useful lesson for me actually to reconnect me to the childlike, like keep saying childlike curiosity, because that's what it feels like. When you discover something for the first time, and it's just really, really exciting. Yeah, I'm really swollen. It's sugar. But aquascaping is different things for different people, and depending on where you are on your journey and what motivates you, what personality type you've got. I'm an extrovert. I get my energy off other people, and that's one of the reasons I really struggled with lockdown, because I couldn't physically spend a lot of time, with other people. And other aquascapers are huge introverts, and they just like to spend time with their aquascape one-on-one, and it's their hobby, and they're not bothered about sharing it with people and talking about it to other people, and that's absolutely fine. And there's everyone in between. I think one of the most interesting things about lockdown is it's grown the hobby hugely. I think a lot of people are spending more time at home, probably a bit bored and having an aquarium. Has anyone just started aquascaping at the beginning of lockdown? Yeah. There you go. Could I ask, if you don't mind me asking, how did you discover aquascaping?
It's your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Oh right. But what search term did you use? How did you discover it? Was it recommended?
No, it's a bit it's a bit random. I used to be terrified of fish, so I was watching loads of fish tube, I suppose, and then I came across Aquascaping and your channel, and I was just like, I did not even know this existed. When I was a kid, planting tanks weren't very nice.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I had no idea this existed, and I'm a really keen gardener, and I've been doing that for years and years.
Oh, right, okay.
So this is like a whole new dimension of that.
Yeah.
And because in winter, we live up on the moors, it's like dark for a lot of the time, and I can't enjoy my garden, and I get like itchy garden fingers.
Yeah.
So this was like perfect winter gardening, it's ideal. It's saved my life really.
That's amazing. So did you look at? Correct me if I'm wrong. You kind of want to desensitise yourself against fish by looking at them on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's like someone with vertigo deliberately watching videos of scary people jumping off cliffs.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's I had that safe kind of distance thing. But even now, I'm planning my second aquarium at the minute. It's only nano fish. I can't quite graduate anything bigger.
Yeah. What, if you don't mind me asking, is there an incident, a childhood incident or something?
Yeah. Apparently my mum told, I don't remember, but when I was about 2, I think we were on holiday in France, my dad caught a mackerel, and I thought it was dead and went to look at it, and it flipped, and apparently I just had an absolute breakdown.
Wow. What's that fish in the aquarium as well?
I tried to get out of the tank.
Have you seen that in between this clip where he bashes the...
I have to cover my face.
Great, in between us, honestly. I think that's really cool though. I think it's really brave of you to sort of address that by looking at YouTube. And thank you for...
That's alright. No, I'm delighted to have discovered it, because I think fish are awesome. So.
On a deeper note, if you want to talk about trauma afterwards, I know some tips to get you over your spirit fish.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we'll talk
thank
about
you.
it later.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Wash them in the head and the fingers.
Yeah, so this is Eletine hydropiper. It's actually an advanced category carpeting plant. Very similar leaf shape to Glossus stigma, but smaller. Slow grower. I have heard it needs cooler water as well. So you don't really want to get it much above 24 if you can help it. If it melts, then it's not my fault. But it is a demanding plant, needs lots of CO2, good lighting. It is in Tropica's advanced category. But I just thought I'd try it because I've never seen it that much in aquascapes.
How have you found the discus and planted tank? Do you have quite warm water for that and have to very specifically pick plants?
Yeah, it is quite warm. I have it on the coolest kind of thing that they're comfortable with, which is about 28 degrees Celsius or 82 Fahrenheit. And the plants are all easy. You know, as I don't know if you heard me earlier, one of the keys to success for long-term, easy planted tanks is have low lighting, easy plants and CO2 injection, and that's what I've got in there in the discus tank. So the plants are fine because the water's 28, which is at the upper end of what they'll be comfortable with. But because there's CO2, they find it a lot easier to grow. And because there's low light and they're easy plants, I don't get much algae, even though the discus are hugely messy feeders, and I feed, I don't know, I feed a big, not a big slab, but
Blood work.
no, it's beef heart, so it's basically pure protein. Protein is like a prerequisite to ammonia, so that's why you shouldn't overfeed your fish basically, because you'll get an ammonia spike and potentially kill your fish. But yeah, there's no real algae issues. There's a chronic kind of background BBA on the older Anebius, but I'm just quite happy to live with that. The amount of energy and the time and stress it would take me to get rid of it is actually less stressful just looking at it. Right? So there's a good lesson there. Is don't be obsessed with trying to avoid all algae at all costs. There is a background level that you should be comfortable with, because algae is a natural thing in all aquarium systems. All water systems will eventually, or usually, get covered in algae if there's enough light and nutrients. So the idea is never to give algae the upper hand. Hello.
So can you just ask the BBA because of the higher heat?
I don't know.
No.
BBA is one of those things that seems to be triggered by anything. What I will say, and I don't normally talk about specific types of algae, because you can address almost all types of algae with one simple thing, and that's make sure you've got good plant growth. So the more plants you have, the better you look after them, the better you maintain your aquarium to keep everything quite clean in terms of diluting waste organics, the less algae you get. I say this phrase all the time, and I might sound like a parrot, but algae and plants are kind of in competition with each other all the time. So the more plants you have, the better you look after them, the faster growing those plants. So if you have floating plants, for instance, or fast-growing stem plants, aquatic weeds basically, these grow so fast, they use up so much nutrients that the algae doesn't really stand a chance. So always recommend planting heavily, in a new tank.
I found that with Range Road, the Dutch are all quick growing stems. There's no one speck of algae. Obviously, I've got the new algae.
Yeah.
It's not too bad in the plants.
Yeah.
It's supposed to show the stems are fast growing.
Yeah, you'll very rarely see bad algae in a heavily planted tank with lots of stems. Sometimes, when I do I've done display tanks for Tropica before, we'll do the scape as we want, do the final, this is when I do proper planting, aquascapes. we plan the scape, execute the scape, and then actually get Limnophylla sessiflora, which is a really fast-growing weed, still in its pot, and literally like put 10 pots in the back of the tank on top of the other plants, just because in a couple of weeks they'll just grow like crazy and help prevent the algae, and then you can just literally take the whole plant out in its pot and then do what you need to with it.
Will little that plant suffer?
No.
So they compete with algae, but
If they do suffer, you just add more fertiliser. Yeah. The good thing about most new plants, potted plants in particular from Tropica, they're grown hydroponically, and they're grown in such a way that they've got a really big nutrient reserve. So you actually can get away with not dosing any fertilisers with regular potted plants for a couple of weeks, especially in soil. But if you're using like a 1-2 grow, these are baby plants and they need more food. So it's a good idea normally to start dosing your liquid fertiliser with 1-2 grow, normally from day one. Yeah. But the principle of helping plants, we call them, is really important in a new aquascape. So unless you're already planning to have the plants as part of your design, as part of your scape, then do consider adding extras to help combat that algae. And that could be as simple as just 1 or 2 pots of the floating plants. And then my favourites, the Salvinia auriculata, which comes as Tropica 1-2 grow. You only need 1 pot for a relatively big tank. There's so many little plants in that pot. And the Salvinia is quite a small leaf, and the roots don't get too long, so it's quite an easy plant to manage and doesn't kind of impact the aesthetics too much. Whereas if you went with something like Amazon frogbit, the Lindabium laevigatum, sounds like a Harry Potter spell. Sorry. Springing soil everywhere. It's the sugar. I'm so high with sugar right now. What was I talking about? Amazon frogbit, it grows really long roots and it can get quite big, which can be really great for like a biotype style aquascape where the fish will swim through the roots and stuff. But if you just want to use a floating plant as a temporary helping plant, then the Salvinia is a really great option. The main danger with floaters, as the gentleman there alluded to, is that they can block out light. And so just be mindful of that. Keep taking off. A few. Have you got any floaters in here? Yeah, there's a few there. You can quite easily manage. Take them off as you need to.
With Amazon frogbit, when the leaves grow too big, you just take some of those leaves off, and the big plant will still stay okay.
I guess so. Yeah, worth a try. Yeah, I mean, such a fast, easy plant. It should be fine.
I've got lots have like really big
leaves
on them, so I don't know if you just take like individual leaves off, they're still healthy.
Yeah.
That's not really bad.
I guess so. Yeah. Just try it at one. See how you go. So I find this really therapeutic, getting your little portions one by one, putting them in your tweezers. I normally have some music on in the background now. Quite into progressive house at the moment. Used to be into drum and bass. That's I'm a bit too old for that now. But I am going out in Darlington later, so any decent.
For the drum and bass.
I used to DJ before I joined the RAF. I used to do like old school drum and bass and house and trance DJing. Yeah, back in my youth when I was a bit more risk taking, I would say. So then I decided to join the Air Force and bomb disposal, because I didn't have enough risks in my life. And I realised actually I'm taking far too many risks, so I should do aquascaping. It's less risky.
Yeah, but you're using Elting hydrobag now, George.
Yeah, but it's not my responsibility to grow it. Right. I could use Utricularia. I've never grown that plant. Anyone successful? Have you grown it? Utricularia gramophonia?
But I tried to do it without CO2, which apparently you can do.
I've heard loads of different theories. It's carnivorous, isn't it? So, I mean, I've heard it doesn't like a really nutrient-rich substrate, so a new soil it doesn't really like, I've heard.
Yeah, I use that.
It prefers softer water, I think. I know I was just on the live stream with Aquascaping earlier, and she's had great results with it. And I think she uses reverse osmosis. Yeah. And that Jordan Steerat, you know, from you deal with him,
Yeah,
don't
he's
you?
got it really lush and thick.
Yeah, but he's got soft water as well.
Yeah.
Well, you've got soft here.
Yeah.
Have we got any? Have we got any in stock? Have we got any in stock? Can we get some? I'll stick some in. Sorry?
Oh, that's good.
No, you took an Aria, not the far right one.
Yeah, how many do you want, George?
Just one. I just wanted to see if we can get it going.
Test it.
No, you're maintaining it. 4 pots. All of them. We'll do 100% Uticularia pot. No fresh.
George, can I ask about the Amano display in Portugal?
Oh yeah.
Recently just re-watched the videos, your video you visit there, and the making of it, like 3 or 4 part making.
Yeah.
How to get that thing to work on such a large scale? You know, CO2. Did you see any of the inner workings of it?
No, I didn't. Not yet. I'd like to see. One of my new book projects is actually top 50 aquascapes in the world, and I want to feature tanks like that. You know, full on behind the scenes stuff. I just know it's just like you imagine. Everything is just scaled up. It's just incredible. You know, we've got 2 guys that maintain it every night for 4 hours.
Just executed that.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
During lockdown, there was a virtual tour advertising it, and I signed up, went on, I was only on that show, so I got a behind the scenes tour of it. Virtual, obviously.
Oh wow.
And it's huge. Shows them like feeding the fish and behind the scenes all sorts of stuff.
Is it Lisbon?
Yeah.
I've been to Lisbon as well, and it was just before I got into the hobby, so
Yeah.
I think next time I travel,
It's definitely anyone that I'd recommend, if anyone's in a position to travel to Lisbon, and it's, if you're even slightly interested in nature, well, it's mind blowing. I actually wept like tears when I went there.
But are you hoping for a while still, because it was only short term, really?
Yeah, it was designed for 18 months, but now it's 6 years now, because it's been so popular. It's the most popular exhibit they've had ever. Yeah. No, I've been invited a few times, but other stuff has come up. So I'd like to go over with Adam Hashkada. Actually, he's invited me. And yeah, I need to go over and see. He's in Poland. He has his own gallery as well, which is amazing. If anyone knows Adam, he's very skilled scaper. In fact, mine's this scape here, mine's me. Adam's work. If he's watching, hi Adam, love you. I do actually love him, right? Not in that way, but he's. This is such a funny story. So I went on holiday with my family, with my wife and the children, and we went to Sicily. Beautiful. Anyone knows Sicily? Beautiful island off Italy, and went to this quite a nice resort, fully inclusive. Lovely. Needed a break from work. Just was going to, do a load of running, swimming, eating and drinking too much, and all the good stuff I like to do on holiday. And I was in reception with Emma and the kids, and Adam was there with his kids and his wife. And Adam is he's a really good friend of mine. He's another skater. He's from Poland, and literally spent a few days with him the week before, and we were talking about going on vacation. We didn't even say, we just said Italy. We didn't even say Sicily. So we didn't even twig we were going to exactly the same resort at exactly the same time, and the chances were just so both our wives were just like, this is so suspect. Honestly. And then we obviously kept bumping into them and having drinks with them. And then me and Adam decided to like do half a day rock collecting, hardscape hunting. And then the wives were really like suspect. Yeah. So it was great, and it was a genuine like coincidence. So I don't believe in fate and stuff like that, but just a crazy coincidence. We were exactly the same resort at the same time. Yeah.
What's the largest tent you've scaled?
Helped to do one in Berlin in the public zoo. It was 28,000 litres. So it was actually a biotope, Borneo in fact. It talks about the Buca Philandra earlier. So yeah, it's based on Symmetry, I think actually. But yeah, that's cool. There's a couple of videos on that on the channel. The hardscape was kind of like a resin concrete thing, and then we planted our own. We put our own hardscape around it, wood and rocks, or more like boulders actually, and then we planted it. I think it was 2 or 3 days project. And the really cool thing was it'd be really tempting to put massive fish in there, but they just stopped like tiny, well I say tiny, just regular tropical fish that you'd find in, Borneo, like damios and barbs and stuff, really small fish, but in this huge tank, and it was really nice to see. But it'd be really tempting to stick loads of big fish in there.
Do you always want them to try and snap?
Yeah, I do actually. I never use. It's a recent. Well, I say recent. I've been doing it for a few years. There's actually a tip I got off my German friend Yuri's, and it's just much easier. It's just less messy. You get a little bit of soil build up on the tweezers there, but if it was wet, that would just be coated in like mud, and then you transfer it onto the plants, and then when you actually do get to fill up, all that mud then just kind of forms a film on the surface and you fill up and it's cloudy. So it's just much easier, much cleaner to plant until it dry.
Do you not find you get any more floating plants afterwards?
No, less in fact, I find. I think the especially if you use the I don't know, disaster here. Especially if you use the holder type, it grips really well. So I try to use a top layer of powder in most situations now, because I do tend to plant with the 1-2 grow as much as I can. I think Tropic have about 50 species of it now available, and then they've got about 140 altogether. They're increasing the species available from the 1-2 grow all the time.
Notice you intermix your carpeting plants, George. Do you find over time like one particular species starts dominating?
Yeah, you do, and I think that's okay. That's just natural to nature, and that can be a happy accident, or it can, might not be. So it's just one of those things.
So it's not always one, like always the Monte Carlo.
Yeah, you'll get the Helanthian Telonym green that will dominate, but you can. You just live with it, observe it, and then do what you need to do to correct it. Yeah. There isn't. The thing is with aquascaping and advice is that a lot of people. It's not a bad thing. A lot of people are really curious and they want to know the answers. But actually, a lot of the answers you only find yourself. Sometimes there isn't. I could tell you one thing, and it might not work for your particular circumstance. So, is this the Utricularia?
It is.
Yay. Good luck. Right. Horrible plant. It's just for you, Mark, this one. I don't like it either. I'm only going to put a couple in. Do you like it? I'll take it out if you like it.
So that was Steve's here. What do you think?
I'll give it 3 days and it will be dead.
I think it's quite good. I like how luminous it is.
So yeah, this is Utricularia gramifolia. It's a carnivorous plant. So in nature, it eats tiny microorganisms. In the aquarium, I don't know if it eats stuff. Does it? Any experts here on carnivorous plants in an aquarium?
Got a carpet with a shrimp, and it doesn't eat with a baby shrimp. But it might take some like coat pots.
It just seems to be one of them plants that some people just manage perfectly with, and everybody else it just must.
Yeah.
It's just
I think it's got to be water. It's got to be water chemistry related. I think it's soft water. A stale substrate seems to be a couple of kind of consistent reports I've heard. I'll do for that. Who wants that? Anyone?
Will it be a
What have we got here then? Oh, Staragini. Okay, this is one of my favourites. Staragini repens. Easy, really easy plant. Beautiful, branches really easily. It's a stem plant, but it will send out side shoots, especially if you trim it well. And you can trim it quite hard, and you can form really quite dense, attractive bushes with it. I like to use it as a transitional plant around the stones. If you imagine going from like a really flat carpet suddenly to like a vertical element of the stone, it's going to look quite unnatural, so we can soften that transition area with something like Staragini. Or Staragini, or Staragine. I always just say it with confidence and no one really questions it.
So I think in one of the manual books, it says something about like trimming plants about 7 times before it, I don't know, is no longer worth trimming again. Do you found anything like that? There's a certain number of times you can trim a plant before it.
Yeah, there is an element of truth to that. Some plants will have like a certain amount of energy that they can give to recreate themselves, basically. You're into horticulture, aren't you? Do you know about that?
It's probably just if they get cut too often, they just might just stress out a bit.
Yeah.
So they kind of give up. Really,
Yeah.
Because it's like they might think that
Yeah.
the odds are against them, kind of thing. I don't know.
I think it depends a lot on the species. You know, fast-growing weeds, just they've evolved just to like grow crazy in any environment. So you could trim them 100 times and they're probably fine. Whereas you've got like a more delicate, rosette plant or an epiphyte plant, if you trim that too hard, it could probably die quite easily. So it depends on the. I think Amano, I don't know if that's actually a quote from Amano himself, but I'm aware of that principle. I think it applies more to stem, regular stem plants, like a Rotala or Ludwigia maybe. But there's over 300. Well, there's actually. Well, Crystal Castleman, I think, describes 600 aquarium plant species. So to say, every plant responds to 7 trims, it's just like, it's a bit more nuanced. So it's important that we don't let the plants dry out too much. Some species are really susceptible to drying out and dying, so do be mindful of that. If your plants have been grown underwater, so if you've got like plants that are adapted to their underwater growth, then you'll need to keep them especially wet. Because if a plant that's adapted to underwater dries out, then it will die very quickly. So just be mindful of that as well. So I'm aware I've got this kind of pocket here, so that's kind of almost all of thirds, that's kind of focal point material there. So we might even think about some colour, potentially, maybe Altananthera mini, maybe a lily. Have we got any lilies in? Yeah, I'm not a massive fan. How does it grow in these tanks? Have we got any?
Yeah, it's just in the. It just from it.
What other reds? Have we got any small red Rossetti type? Have we got?
I've got, can't remember the name, but with red underneath and green on top. I think it's,
Undulatus red.
no, the other one. What's about it?
Decatia?
No.
Is it in a pot or one, two, right?
Yeah, but, is it Eusterina or something?
Oh, Eustriana.
That's it.
That goes really slow.
That does it.
Yeah.
There's something in there that's purple. I remember seeing it before. Like proper vibrant purple.
Is there?
Yeah.
I lift it out.
Oh yeah, it's Labelli Cardinalis.
Oh no, nasty. Put it back.
What else? What about Aragoya?
I got that already.
Have you?
Yeah, I was going to maybe use that as an amplifier actually.
It's better, I think.
I might go for the Gratiola. This could be, I mean, it's not colourful, but it's quite ornamental looking.
Yeah.
And it's very too tall.
Yeah. Oh,
I've got it here already. Yeah, that's why I was. Don't want to cost me too much. I know, Tropica are giving you these anyway. Yeah, I can use as much as I like. Has anyone seen the Tropica Live announcement? Yeah? Yeah? So those that don't know, if you subscribe to the Tropica YouTube channel, I'm going to be doing, hosting monthly workshops in Denmark. So there'll be similar, workshops to kind of this, but much more sort of slick, professional, digital SLR cameras, microphones, and it's all going to be fancy, controlled with the software, different camera angles and stuff. So yeah, I recommend you tuning in. The first one's on the 30th of September at 6 PM UK time, which is a Thursday. Thursday, 30th of September, 6 PM UK time. It'd be really great if we could join us. It's all free, and you get a chance to win stuff as well.
Is this to showcase plants and new ranges and things?
It's literally just to communicate, engage with our end users, the customers, the hobbyists. We do monthly aquascaping workshops, talk about different styles of aquascapes, get different guests. So maybe get Iwagumi experts, so actually you can see a decent Iwagumi. Obviously going to get my mate Ty Streetman over to do a biotope aquascape. You've got Tommy from Green Aqua, he's really good at Iwagumi, so maybe get him over. We've got Yuri's, of course, Adri Bauman, he's really good. But yeah, open to ideas for different scapers. We want to be relevant. It's social media is a really big thing. It's never going away. So, in my opinion, I've got mixed feelings on it. I use it for business, of course, and I rely on it for my, my career. But I do believe it can be used, in a really, really good way, and that's what we're trying to do with the Tropica live stream. Is the technology is now there and readily available to create really kind of professional quality streams. Not like this one using my phone. And yeah, I'm really excited. So it's going to be really good.
Is it going to be on set dates, or will it just be announced when the next one will be?
It's set dates until December. It's all on the website. Yeah, if you go on tropica.com, I won't be offended if you go on there now. There's on the front page of the website is the link to Tropica Live, where you get to see an announcement video, and there's a load of stuff of what you can expect. We've got some really cool. I'll bring it with me. This is a world exclusive. No one's seen this in the flesh yet. Water bottles. How cool are they? Like I saw in Winderloch. Yeah, so that's just one of the things you can win. Notepads, all branded merch stuff. Polo shirts, pens, mugs. Exciting, isn't it? And the idea is.
It's really good to get something consistent that you can
Yeah.
plan into your
Yeah, exactly.
your lifestyle kind of thing.
Yeah. And
Sometimes you see things and it's hard to engage with them because you're at work or you're busy doing something else.
yeah, I mean, the idea behind this stream is actually the live chat's going to be manned 100%. So the guy behind it can either answer the questions himself or fire them at me to get answered. So it'll be a really truly interactive experience. Because when I do a stream like this, they can ask all the questions they want. I can't see. So this is, it's going to be like 3 people working behind the cameras, and I'm going to be in front, just literally focusing on escaping and stuff, and not worrying about the technology. So yeah, it should be really good fun.
Is that not daunting a little bit?
Yeah. It's easier than bomb disposal though.
Yeah.
Whenever I start to feel nervous, I just think, this is not getting shot at or blown up. The worst thing that I get now is like a nasty troll on the internet. That's not, yeah, you called me a nasty name. Yeah, so it's all good. It's really exciting because it's something that's been missing, I think. I mean, there's a lot of live streams that have been going on, but it's nice to do something a bit more professional. A lot of time and effort's gone into it, and I'm hoping it's going to be a success. So I need everyone here to watch it, because the success is measured in how many people are watching it, basically. So if you can watch it and share it with anyone that might be interested, that'd be really great.
And your species spotlight doing that on top of that?
Yeah, the plant profiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do okay. Yeah, they're like I call them a library video. So
I like those.
they're viewable forever. They're not like a vlog where it's just kind of a short-term, instant grab thing. The plant profiles are nice because I actually get to research fully the species and then put it all into my own words. And just by doing that exercise, you learn so much.
I think they're really useful.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy them. It's quite challenging sometimes to get the footage that you need. And there's a lot of species to cover, obviously. But yeah, I do enjoy them.
Do you enjoy the science behind all this, George? The aquascaping. I know you talk with real enthusiasm about it, but do you like sort of geek out about the science behind it?
I do a bit, yeah. I wouldn't say I'm an academic. I only, I got expelled from school at 15, 16. So I didn't do any sort of high level or even A level education, but I am very curious and I love to learn. And I don't go super deep in the science. I think I know enough to get by, and I know a basic understanding of the kind of the processes, biological, physical and chemical, that are going on. I can talk about light, CO2, nutrients, circulation, hydrodynamics. My botany and my taxonomy is actually really poor. That's something I could do with being better at. But I think one of my strengths, and I don't want to sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but I think one of my strengths is I'm okay at a lot of things. So I'm okay at the camera, I'm okay at talking, I'm okay at aquascaping, and I think as someone doing what I do, it's all those things are really useful. I'm not like super nerdy on a specific fish, which you can get super niche, can't you? I like to keep it quite sort of broad in terms of plant aquariums and aquascaping. Yeah.
The whole thing is the whole complex of ecosystem that you and the whole science behind that. Just a little about that is fascinating. The fact all the things in sort of symbiosis with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I like that explanation. That's good. It is, symbiosis is a great word, and it's infinitely complex, right? It's one of the things a message that I try to get across when I go a bit deeper with people is that there isn't usually is never a simple yes or no answer to anything. It's being very wary of people that are certain of anything, because everything in life is infinitely nuanced. And people will ask, how do I get rid of my algae? They just want a one-shot kill answer, but it isn't simple like that. and you're dealing with an infinitely complex ecosystem here, and there's rules and guidelines that you can follow to hopefully, you know, achieve success, but it's never really guaranteed. You're dealing with natural processes, and you know, sometimes you can't predict stuff. You can have a good idea. I know that if I hit this tank with a certain amount of light, a certain amount of CO2, a certain amount of circulation, a certain amount of nutrients, and I change a certain amount of water at a certain frequency, 99% that's going to achieve success. But there might be one tiny little process in that, you know, in that complex, you know, system that could completely throw everything out. It could be where this wood was collected, it could have soaked in some toxins which we were not aware of. And then only when we soak it with water, those toxins are leached and kill everything. We're dealing with natural materials, it's always a risk. We can mitigate the risk by, you know, buying healthy, fresh plants, you know, like grown in laboratory conditions. These are absolutely, you know, guaranteed to be disease-free, etc. You know, but we can't guarantee things like this. You know, there's a certain type of wood, I'm not going to mention it publicly, that has had, you know, a lot of people have real dramas with it. It's wiped out their tanks. So, you know, we should always be mindful of that. There's always an element of risk when we're dealing with natural products. But I hope that doesn't put people off, you know, because when we do succeed with these relatively complex processes, I think it just adds to the joy. You know.
It's fascinating, like there's a thing called the Dove Lab in Colour Coats, which is all about the studying the marine life in there. Okay. It's an old Edwardian Victorian building, and they study the coatings behind some of the process and things like that's going digression a bit, but there's a real way they study the animals in the tanks, and that's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's been there a few times at work, but it's.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a coatings chemist, coatings chemist, polymer chemist. So it's not really not a big crossover, but.
You know you've got an organic chemist here.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm an organic chemist by trade. Right. So I fell into polymer chemistry.
So we don't.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a bug.
Daddy long legs.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a flying spider.
I
just can't deal with it.
Talk about trauma.
Sorry, that's like real trauma.
Every night, the crane flying around.
If anybody wants to grab it,
yeah, no,
Sorry.
Aquascaping, yeah, it ticks so many boxes for me. You know, it's the planning of escape, the design in the actual planting process. Doing this is super cool. Watching the plants grow, and you know, sharing it with other people, and just really. I'm getting to the point now where I feel like I've earned my stripes, so to speak, and created a lot of aquascapes, and really now I relish seeing other people succeed with their scapes, and that's where I get my biggest kind of joy at the moment. You know, people like Alex Scapes and Ryan Knoll, you know, and anyone on Instagram might know those guys. You know, he's only been in the hobby a couple of years, but just absolutely creating the most beautiful content. And it's these people that, for me, are the future, you know, the hobby. And yeah, it's just really nice to see. I kind of feel like I've not coming to the end of my career or the end of my hobby by any means, but I feel reassured that the next generation of aquascapers, you know, are going to do some really great things for the hobby, which is all good. And the shops like this as well, you know, really help the hobby. When I started, yeah, there was literally one shop in the whole of the UK that did CO2 kits. No one ever heard of dosing nitrates and phosphates to a tank. It was like the enemy. And you know, things have evolved and changed, and like I said, I think at the beginning of the workshop, we're in a really exciting time in aquascaping where we have the best availability of products, best availability of hardscape plants. It's been a bit challenging maybe with Brexit and plants and stuff, but it's getting there, I think. but yeah, you guys don't know, I don't want to sound like one of those old people, you don't know how easy you've got it. But you have got it really easy. You know, you've got a beautiful store here, amazing hardscape, all the aquariums that you could ever imagine, all the fancy stuff, all the more beginner friendly stuff as well. You know, it's a good time to be into aquascaping right now. So you can see I'm deliberately kind of mixing the textures. We've got a bold group of plants here. That's going to grow quite ornamentally. This is called Gratolia viscodula, and it's a very kind of ornamental plant. It will grow very vertically, and it will have these really kind of distinct, kind of sharp leaf blades. So quite interesting. Not used that often in aquascaping. So quite happy to see it in here. So I'm just mindful that we need some mid-ground around here, because we're going to put stems in the back. The trouble is, if I put stems all the way forward, they will just grow, and then you'd see that the lower portions of the stems would look really ugly. So what happens is, as the stems get taller, the light underneath is blocking the lower leaves, and they tend to drop off. So you often find the bottom portions of the stems look quite ugly. So what I normally do, my top tip is to plant a mid-ground plant, often a rosette plant, because that looks prettier all the way from the bottom to the top. And then we plant the background stems behind that, and so you get this nice transition. So we've got the foreground carpet here, nice stone here, Starogine, then we'll go to a mid-ground rosette or maybe a shorter stem, and then into our final background stems. I'm happy to hear any ideas for mid-ground plants. Anyone?
You've got Arabia, haven't you?
Got it already, yeah. Have you had it go quite bushy and tall before?
Well, it's only got 15 centimetres or so.
Yeah.
We always try and trim it, so...
Yeah. Arabia. Have we got any small crypt? Have we got any potted crypts in there?
Yeah.
We've got Beckett's Petchi. It's not a George Hardscape unless it's got crypts in it. And then some Java ferns, yeah.
Well, Wednesday green, we've got, I've got 3 pots.
Oh, Wednesday green?
I've got loads of tropica though. Tropica.
Yeah. Yeah, do a mixture.
Yeah?
Yeah. Thanks, mate. So where's the best bars and clubs to go out in Darlington?
Newcastle.
Not bad. How far's Newcastle?
Take you up.
35
Train? Let the train take us train.
half an hour and trip.
I did a stag do in Newcastle and I don't remember it, so it must have been good. I haven't been out a night out in so long. I probably have 2 pints and fall asleep. You have good curry houses here.
Yes.
Yes. Nice.
I think you want one, but I'll go to the lounge.
No. They're really healthy, aren't they?
Yeah.
Type 2 diabetes in the back. Good, mate. They're a bit piddly, aren't they? Disappointing, Tropica. Is that it?
No, we'll get some more out the back, don't worry.
Was that just to make them easier to plant? Or does it provide some benefit to the plant? Does it encourage new
I don't know. I always do it and it always works. I've never not done it, so I don't know.
I think chopping the roots does stimulate the growth.
I think it's supposed to, that's the theory. That's what I would say to people. But I don't actually know if
It
it's
also
true.
means you don't get lots of white roots sticking through. So when you try
Yeah,
to
that's
plant
true.
it, it'll go the other way.
Yeah, yeah. I love crypts though. They seem to do really well in my hard water. and they almost grow in complete darkness. Yeah, lovely.
Do you ever find you get too thick and you have to break them down at the very bottom to break them up?
Yeah, after a good few months. Yeah.
Do you ever find some plants that just, for some mysterious reason, won't grow for you? I can't grow living fever.
Can't you? Which one? Which one? You can't grow it?
Well, I do, but it's very leggy and it's hard.
Interesting. You injecting CO2?
Yeah.
You got soft water?
Ah, very hard.
Very well.
So, well, you know, you were 400?
Yeah.
I think I'm about 460.
Okay. I'm surprised you're struggling with it. But you're growing other plants okay?
Yeah.
It's not a very nice plant anyway, is it? Oh, sorry. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you give up and move on to another plant that you like.
I've got a few crypts in my 2-year-old tank, and there's like the crypts are really they were quiet at the start, like all the stems were going nuts, but I've got like pups coming up 6-8 inches away from the original plants. So it's just like I get it's just going down and through the substrate and quite far away.
It's quite brutal. Yeah. My highest ever IOPLC entry was a crypt only tank. It was 169. Has anyone entered the IPLC here before? Anyone got made it? No. You want to enter that one, mate, next time. Are you going to do a bigger version of that at home, aren't you? I hope.
Yeah. No, I've got Hardscape.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you show me a clip? Can you show me a picture?
Yeah. Right now?
And your Hardscape.
Are you doing it in the 6 or 9? 15. Eventually comes back in the house.
When are you doing it? When are you going to stay?
No, I think I'll have to keep the little ones in the house for at least a year, just because I think the missus would go mad if I just keep changing what I'm doing.
Is your missus quite tolerant of your hobby?
Very.
That's good. Shout out to all the missuses that are tolerant of our hobby.
And the men that she's not good at his hobby.
Yeah. Yeah, shout out to the other way around as well. Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
that's for another one.
Still
She's not
talking about.
Said I think we could do another fish tank in the hallway, and she's like, absolutely not.
So she does have a limit. That's good to know.
That's a limit. I mean, I know the word absolutely was used, but I can work on that.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, I think there's a chance.
Yeah. What's the chances of me having a tank in 1 in a million? So there is a chance. So I'm being lazy now. You can use fingers if you want with the bigger, more robust plants. But I don't have fancy gloves like we're doing Aqua Boys and Furies. Although shout out to Moss Cotton for the merch t-shirts. Don't know if some of you are wearing them already, but if you really want to be an aquascaping geek, you have to buy aquascaping merch.
As soon as that t-shirt's available in the store, I'll be getting them. What about that?
This one?
Yeah.
I like, they're all good. I like the Wabi Sabi. I like the Wabi Sabi because of the meaning behind it. For those who don't know, Wabi Sabi is a kind of Japanese term to describe like the delicate, the infinitely complex balance between perfection and chaos. Yeah. So interpret that how you want, but I think it's a lovely. And it's basically what nature aquarium aquascaping is. You're kind of using elements of nature and compositional guidelines and all these things, but you're not creating something that's perfect at all. It's deliberately imperfect, and that's where the beauty lies.
Do you want to use stereo then? Or not?
Nice.
Or balance time?
Do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go on the ditch. Sorry, I'm not going to do any stem plants in the back now.
Right.
It's going to be.
Fair enough.
because it's going to. Yeah, is it all of it? Is these three on there in pots?
Yeah.
And what about the plant side?
In pots.
Yeah. Yeah. How many have we got?
Only them to go back.
6, 7,
More.
6, 7 left.
Oh, all right. About 10 altogether.
Yeah, two more.
Yeah.
Is that alright?
All of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, crypts. Going back to the, started off as Irigumi, ended up with crypts and wood. That's what we're talking about. George, you always step out of your comfort zone. No, you don't. Always go on about step out of your comfort zone, everyone, and then George stays in his comfort zone. Totally.
To be honest, George, that was going to be an Irigumi as well. That one.
Yeah?
Yeah, and that didn't work either.
Irigumi's hard.
They are, yeah.
I used to do them and used to knock them out, no worries, but now I'm just really struggling. I need a good day, I think. A whole day to myself.
Yeah.
With an
You need to
Irigumi.
mess around with stones for a long time to get them to strike. Or get lucky.
Yeah, lucky's good. Yeah, there is an element of luck, and I think we should embrace luck. Yeah, I've been very lucky to be where I am. I don't even know how long we've been going for. I've been having such a lovely time. You can. It doesn't look very good at that angle, but they'll get a surprise at the end. No, thanks for watching on YouTube, everyone. Hit the like.
How are discus doing, George? The fish themselves as well?
I think they're well. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm going to do a video update on it because I've been getting some really interesting feedback. The fish are quite dark. You asked me a question. Yeah. Which normally you start to worry a bit when they go dark because it shows they're not happy. But they feed really ferociously. Their breathing's not laboured. They're spawning and they're very active. So on paper, their behaviour doesn't indicate that they're unhappy, but physically, their darkness would indicate otherwise. Now, I've heard lots of different theories. They don't like a soil substrate because it's dark and they try to camouflage themselves. They don't like CO2 injection, so they go dark because of that. They don't like black backgrounds, so they go dark because of that. So I've got soil, CO2 and black background. So the question to me is, I have to be brutally honest with myself. Are they genuinely unhappy, or are they just camouflaging because that's what they do? And is the camouflaging stress response, or is it just a kind of camouflage response, kind of default? Yeah. So I don't know, and no one seems to know. And there's no scientific evidence. I've tried finding papers on it. I've asked breeders, and they just steer away from it because they don't know. The CO2 thing is the contentious topic because there's been no real studies done. And I think there should be because, as I become more aware of, my responsibility as a hobbyist and a someone that does it as a job, I would like to know more about CO2 effects on fish. Just because visibly they don't seem to be suffering at all, does it mean? It doesn't mean they necessarily are.
That's interesting. I guess I've got CO2 and I just go off the kind of advice of the indicator and the right colour is. I guess in my head I just assumed to keep it in that tolerance zone. Is that not just replicating like CO2 in open water?
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? In a lot of natural systems, especially still water systems like lakes, which are they might be heavily planted, you're going to get the natural photosynthesis and respiration cycles. So during the day, the plants are growing like crazy, consuming all the CO2 in the water, producing loads of oxygen, and the pH level is going to be relatively high because it's used up all the CO2 that would otherwise keep the pH quite low. In the evening, the plants respire, so they produce CO2 and consume oxygen. And actually, you can get a pH swing of, huge. You can go from like pH 6 to pH 8 in a still water lake, and that's bigger than most fish would be happy with in an aquarium. So your theory of it's just kind of essentially replicating something that would occur in nature, you could argue that's the case because you do get the CO2 production as part of biological activities in substrates and bacteria production, and all these living processes go towards producing CO2. So by us injecting, almost religiously a specific amount, normally about 30 parts per million CO2, and then generally turning it off through the night. Yeah, you could argue, that might be similar to what's going on in nature, but we don't know. No, we don't know, and no one knows. I don't think anyone knows. No one's telling me.
With the breeding in the discus, then I've seen on your channel, other channels like the eggs on bits of wood and whatnot.
Yeah.
Are they like patties? Will there be loads of fish, or do they get gobbled up by the adults?
Yeah, it gets gobbled up by the other fish. Cichlids are quite good parents generally, most cichlids are.
Yeah.
But I've got tetras in there, I've got a mono shrimp. They're quite mono shrimp bastards. Yeah, sorry. But they will like outcompete the fish for food. Yeah. They'll literally swim up to a discus mouth and steal breed parts from it.
Are you getting rid of the discus?
No. Why, do you want to buy it?
No, you don't put the cichlids in the big like that.
Yeah, I'm upgrading the Highline 400 to a 600. Discus are going in there. And then I'm going to try white sand, no CO2, and see. I can't get away with a black background. It comes fitted with a black background, unfortunately. But I'm going to try non-CO2 and white sand and see if they colour up. But I'm actually going to monitor their breathing. I think, for me, it seems to make sense. The best indicator of how stressed the fish is the breathing rate. So I monitor the breathing rate as it is now with CO2, etc. And then I monitor it post non-CO2 and white sand and see. Because I think that's a definite physical kind of characteristic of the stress response is breathing rate. To me, that makes sense. Anyone else?
They don't look unwell.
They've not got a hole in their head. They're all feeding. They're all active. I hate to. No, I'm not going to say that.
It's not peppering, is it? It's just the
whole body goes dark.
They're just darkened, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's not
Try to put the lights a little bit close.
Yeah.
I kept discus and planted tank with CO2, like a mixture of gravel in there and sand, and various different strains of centres in there. And for the most part, they were absolutely fine. Some of the pigeon strains got some pepper in.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they all were pretty bright, but mine wasn't as dark as what yours is.
Okay.
Now. I was running it with a radian on the top.
Okay.
So that was, fair.
Were you injecting CO2?
At the time I was, not at the moment because it's big tank is happening. So
Right. How much CO2 are you putting in?
At that point it was quite low actually. It was only about 20
Okay.
ppm. So I was running it a little bit lower. But I did have problems with plant growth because of the temperature.
Right.
But I actually found Crips did really, really well in there.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had them, they were sort of planted in a bowl that was made out of some bogwood.
Yeah.
And they were directly under the filter outlet and they absolutely took off. They were the only thing in there that actually didn't suffer from BPA.
That's interesting.
So,
I'm thinking about planting swords in the back of my 600. And so I'm thinking of doing a really strong hardscape and then white sand foreground, and then just big swords in the background, but actually planting the swords into like literally terracotta pots without the soil, and then just gravel sand everywhere else. So the plants will still get the benefit of the nutrients from the soil, but hopefully the fish won't like go dark because of it.
Yeah, like I said, mine had really, really good strong lighting on there, and I found from my experience that they actually did have quite a good colour.
Colour because of the extra lights?
From the higher lighting, yeah.
That's interesting.
But it might just be down to that it's a dark colour screen that you have, and paired with dark background and the low level of lighting, they might just want to stay a little bit darker.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one, because there's the ego part of me is like, how dare you criticise my way of keeping my fish? You know, they're spawning, they're feeding regularly, they're active. How dare you say that they're unhealthy? But then there's like the awareness side of me that's like, actually, they are dark, and what's triggering the darkness, and is the darkness a result of them being stressed? And actually that's, you know, ego aside, you need to make sure you're looking after your fish the best you can, you know, and just because I happen to be in the public eye, you feel a sense of, you do have to protect, in essence, you know, the decisions that you've made, but it's more important that you're honest, you know, if you have made a mistake, in a position of, you know, when people are, you know, in a bit of a public arena, it's even more important to acknowledge those mistakes so other people can learn from them and don't make the same mistakes. Yeah.
That's why I let some of my tanks have algae, especially for otters, they just thrive on it, you know, they've got the nice round bellies.
Yeah, yeah.
I found that if I continuously get rid of the algae, the otters suffer a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not actually a, I might upset a few people here, but I'm not a big fan of ottos. I think they should be kept in huge shoals and big tanks. They're a shoaling fish, and they're often caught with not very sort of animal welfare methods, and they're often starving when you get them in the store. So
yeah, I've heard that recently actually.
Have we got any balance side? No, Cryptocorani cristitala.
Do a different brand though.
Is it?
Yeah. Does that matter or not? How many do you want?
How many we got?
100.
One.
Okay.
You don't know who's coming in to buy plants tomorrow.
You know what? I don't think we need any. I'm going to go use the Rihanna only in the back. Yeah, that's cool.
So you don't want a couple in there just to kind of process it?
That's like you want to
right in there. Next to the
yeah, go on then.
What does the audience think? Valencia in there or?
What does the audience think? Hands up for Balancei in the back.
Yeah, why not?
Definitely not now. I didn't tell you I was a rebel as well, did I?
George, you're obviously talking about fish out from yesterday.
Yeah.
What's your views regarding PETA and the government looking to stop the trade of tropical and marine fish in the UK? It's early days, but
Yeah. Is there anyone from PETA here? Okay. To be honest with you, I don't know enough about the topics to have a strong opinion on. Be wary of anyone with certainty, remember. However, I will tell you an interesting story that kind of maybe you can get an idea of my point of view from the story I'm going to tell you. So, on ITV, is it either Good Morning, what's the ITV one in the morning?
Good morning, Britain, the actual interview.
Yeah, did you see the woman on there?
Yes.
Okay. I reached out to her privately to confront her about her opinions, and we had an interesting discussion, and she cemented my opinion that she didn't have a clue what she was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, the actual interview that was, talking about taking fish from their families and finding some of the straws and those kind of fish that
Oh, it was just playing on emotions, and it's really frustrating that the mainstream media just love to sensationalise, make things simple, and just basically cause divisiveness between people. and it's really frustrating. And I don't actually watch any mainstream news in the morning anymore because it just puts me in a bad mood. In fact, so I thought, you know, I did do a morning routine. I did quite a strict morning routine, and I like good news, right? I like to hear good news. So you can say to Alexa, "Tell me some good news," but she only literally knows 2 pieces of good news, and that for me just sums up like mainstream media. You know, if you want to find out like stuff to make you happy, it's really quite in the news world, journalism world, it's quite challenging. But I did, yeah, pandemic, it just really skewed my view on media, I think. So we'll leave it there. But yeah, going back to the animal welfare thing, you know, what we're doing is a grey area, I guess. You know, we're keeping, you know, could be live, could be wild animals, and there's something, you know, something that seems a little bit at odds with, I don't know, is keeping a wild animal captive for our own joy. Is that a good thing? So you could argue yes, because the animal is actually better off with you. It's got no predators, it's getting really nice food, hopefully, it's getting cared for, the water quality is hopefully amazing. This is assuming that you know what you're doing and you know you're giving that livestock a good home. The other thing is actually the communities that are involved around collecting these wild caught specimens. You know, a lot of these communities, their whole livelihoods are based around collecting these animals, and a lot of them are educated on how to do it responsibly. So they're actually fishing and replenishing stocks, and actually looking after the habitat, and so it's actually a long-term sustainable, not only business model, but sustainable for the actual animals as well. So, like I said, everything's nuanced. There isn't a simple, yes, it's bad to keep wild-caught animals in the fish tank, or it's good. It's infinitely nuanced, and it depends on the situation. It depends on how well you're looking after the animal. It depends on where it came from, and you can look at things in a lot of detail. You know, how much CO2 was produced in order to get that animal in your aquarium. You know, how much CO2 are you responsible for the power that's being used to run that aquarium. These are, you know, questions that might be uncomfortable for us, but we have to answer them in order to, you know, hopefully live a life in kind of in accordance with looking after the planet. You know, I like to think that educating people about aquariums and how to look after animals and plants and now into more biotope stuff, you could hopefully argue that what we're doing is educating folk and bringing a level of awareness that they may not have before about conservation and habitat destruction and things like this. So, you know, you thought you were coming here to learn how to aquascape. We're learning how to save the planet. But you know, Takashi Amano himself was hugely influential in conservation. He won loads of photography awards with his conservation projects. And to me, it seems a little bit ironic that that his brand is actually the most luxurious and opulent brand out there, but it's still his kind of message was always, you know, connecting people with nature through aquascaping, and that's a message that I firmly am in line with myself. Nearly done with planting. I think, do you have any more small epiphytes? Like, oh, can I just take loads of big glandra out of that?
I've got anything in pots.
Have you?
Otherwise I've got it in vitro as well.
Let's do pots. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How many you got?
Just get them all out. Pots, right? Ones who grow on normal potting.
Normal pot.
Right, so I've got Kindergang, I've got Boots Red, and I've also got Wavy Green.
Yeah, let's do a little mixture. Couple of pots of each, have we got them? And what 1-2 grain moss do we have?
It's easier if you name them, to be honest. I've got quite a lot, mate.
Have you? Have we got Christmas?
Yeah.
Spanky,
Yeah.
Lynn,
Yeah.
Java,
Yeah.
Weekends.
Alright, so what? Oh, nice, smart arse,
No, I was in the other day, you know, I went through a few.
I don't think we'll go for moss. No, I don't know. Some nice moss around here would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I've got the moss portions as well, you know, like the bigger ones.
Yeah. What have you got in that? Have you got any weeping actually? That'd be nice.
Christmas, weeping, and Java.
Let's go weeping, mate.
Yeah.
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 Just one pot of that.
Them pots don't need much prep.
Sorry, which portion of moss?
Just
Weeping.
But well, that is 1-2 grow. Is it in a gel? Is it in a gel as a 1-2 grow or liquid?
No, that's just the bigger pot.
Is it the portion? Or
Yeah.
what the weeping?
Yeah.
Got any glue? You're the sea chem man. Get me some sea chem glue. I had sea chem contact me the other day. And I said, "Do you want to be an ambassador?" And I said, "Do you know who else I work with?" Like sea chem and yeah, Algae Tropica. There's a few things that complex there. Do you do all the sea chem first and things like that?
No, I do it on when I do.
Okay.
So it's like, it's just getting track how the skill I want it to be.
Yeah.
So whether you choose to use it.
Yeah, whatever. Tropica specialised. Yeah. But maybe premium to start with.
There's a good ready always put it in there.
Cheers, mate. Is that ready to go? Is it?
Yeah, done it.
Sweet.
One, two, or three, one, three,
No, one's fine. Yeah. So top tip, for those that don't know, you can glue plants to your wood or rocks. Best to use a gel type cyano acrylite based glue, which this one is. And really important to only use small portions. Now there is some, am I going to do it? Yeah, why not? I'm going to do a special tip. This was actually originally done by my friend Yuri's. What we do is get your moss and then cut it up into loads of tiny fronds, tiny portions.
You sure you don't want some gloves now? That's cool.
No, I like to touch the plants. I like to connect with them. Yeah? You know, there's an experiment done where one plant, or two identical potted plants in different rooms. One was shouted at every day, like really horrible things, and the other one was talked to really nicely. And the one that was talked to nicely grew better. And I'm not even joking. That is true. So, people underestimate the power of plants. Right. So what we do now is get a load of the glue. Now normally what I suggest is use a tiny amount of glue and then use a portion and then attach it. But we're going to do something different today. I'm going to put a load of... Where do I go? Around here, I reckon. So you put quite a large portion there. Just my lid gone. And then get your glue here, your moss, and then just in. And then you can repeat it in another area, so let's do a bit down here. You'll get loads of little bits floating around, but that's Mark's job to get rid of. But you can see, that looks quite nice and natural already, compared to like getting big portions and things. But yeah, you end up with things like that. So it's really weird when you walk into a bar. Right, we're nearly there. Here we are, Bucophalandra. I've already talked about sustainably sourced Bucophalandra, so make sure you get your Tropica or wherever you get them from. I always cheat and I just wedge the plants in, and they'll self-attach, no worries after a while. We've got wavy green, Kedigang and red. So 3 different species of plants available from Bucophalandra from Tropica. Really, really trendy plant at the moment. You'll find lots of different interesting names for them. Hardly any of them have been formally classified, so they tend to come out with these crazy trade names. But it is what it is. So. But quite a new plant to the hobby. I think the first ever, in fact my friend Adam Pasquello got some from Japan in the early 2000s. I think that was the first sort of hobbyist available Bucophalandra that I've heard of. Have we got any, that should look good. This is a bit too predictable, isn't it? You got any bronchitis?
Yeah. I just saw Stu like nothing else. Like,
No,
how many portions?
Is it just regular pots?
Yeah.
We'll just go for 2. 2. Maybe. Is it looking alright? Imagine if everyone said no. Start again, Josh. Terrible. It's a bit bulbous, that bit there, isn't it? I think having more. This bit here is a bit. Soften that up a bit.
George, you find that you might find lines of symmetry that you try to avoid, because I thought that it's best to try to avoid lines of symmetry.
Symmetry you tend to want to avoid in aquascaping, although you can use it. Some people like to use it deliberately. I mean, it is offset. I mean, this is quite central here, but we've got a huge kind of stone here which offsets it, and then 2 here. So it's a classic kind of rule of thirds, 2 to 1. Big bit off centre here. But yeah, try to generally avoid too much symmetry. But like I said earlier, it's all about what you like to look at. Sometimes you might create a scape that you absolutely adore, and you put it online, and then you might get criticised. But actually, who gives a shit? If you like it, and that's the most important thing. I think. Social media is great, but I think one of the dangers of it generates this kind of comparison culture, and you constantly, comparing yourself to other people, and this is can be quite dangerous. Instagram's a classic. People often post the most, their highlight reels, the best of the best, and actually it's not a real reflection of the hobby. And you know, I've been guilty of that in the past. You know, I've only posted, you know, activity Photoshop photos of scapes, but now I like to think a bit more kind of realistic and authentic, and I'll post unfiltered photos. I'll deliberately, you know, use the hashtag no filter and post it just as it comes off my phone. And I'll take a lot more raw and authentic kind of video content, you know, just a couple of minutes long, with no editing. Because I think it's potentially dangerous for especially the younger generations that are growing up with social media as the norm. I think it's important to show a bit of kind of authenticity and imperfection. Yeah. Which is why I was, you know, quite comfortable to start again with the Iwagumi. You know, I realised I got to the point where, you know, this isn't going to get any better. I could spend a few hours doing it and make it look okay, but no one wants to really watch me do that for a couple of hours unless you're a bit weird. So yeah, I took the decision to start over, and I'm very lucky to be in a shop that has the materials I can do that. I'm just mindful of this here, it's quite a flat texture here, it's a bit unnatural, so I'm going to try and maybe run some wood to try and mimic this tree root kind of creeping over the stone there. So. I'm aware that's a very different colour at the moment, but ooh, little boat. Okay, don't like that. What other epiphytes do we have? Have we got any? Got some more Hygrophil arabai left over. Or do I use it all up? I feel bad for all these stem plants that aren't going to be used. Anyone? Are we going to give them away?
Yeah.
Yeah. The audience say yeah. Okay. I'm just mindful there's quite a big gap around here that looks a bit unnatural.
Let's see if there's any more wood.
Yeah. Oh, nice one. Oh, yes. Thanks, mate. I hope this is the most expensive stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it ironwood? 88 ironwood?
Yeah.
£97.50.
So it's Hornwood.
That's a fine wood. Hornwood, there we go. I don't know. And a top tip, if you wedge epiphytes in where you get two pieces of hardscape touching each other, it just softens it and makes it look more natural. And a nice bit of moss as well down there, I think would improve things a touch. I'm looking right nice here, aren't I? Yeah.
Do you ever attach moss to wood or rock as well?
Yeah, rock is okay. Yeah, it tends to look more natural on wood because I think when you think about an ancient forest, or when you walk through a woodland, you often see a fallen down tree and it's got the moss growing on it naturally. And you do obviously get moss growing on stones, but I think the general association is stronger with wood and moss for me anyway.
George, have you got any tips on growing moss? Because my moss seems to not spread, but just grow in large, big vertical clumps. And I don't keep it short. Dark, it goes down very.
Yeah, I think just keep it trimmed. It's a pain in the arse trimming moss, but it's the only way you can really keep it compact and attractive. It tends to go more leggy without good conditions, so good CO2, good light, and good circulation tends to grow more compact moss. And some mosses respond better to cooler temperatures as well. But it's all about maintenance with moss, keeping it well trimmed.
It really does help you have to work through that, don't catch it all.
Yeah.
To have a look somewhere else.
Yeah, when I used to do a lot of moss heavy scapes, I used to attach a small airline or a 10mm tube and cable tie it to some self-sprung scissors and then siphon as I'm trimming, and then it siphons out the trimmings as you. Okay, I think we're ready for I was going to say food then, I am really hungry, but we're ready for filling.
Do you want to fill it now?
Yeah.
Yeah? I'll drop all this.
I did bring my red pollen today, didn't I? Is that wrong? Is that Newcastle? No.
Yeah.
Durham?
It's just the north.
Just the north?
Just the north.
Anything above the Watford Gap? I like the north. Northerners are so much more friendly. Generally speaking.
You're not going to have it down.
You guys are tough audience. So I'm just plugging in obvious gaps now in the foreground. Once we'll use these plants up.
Where'd you put down, George?
Oh no.
Is there a wall in the back of the wall?
I reckon this will be big enough. There is one, I'll wedge it, I think, against the. Don't worry, I've got it. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. Yeah, that's a really. Thank you. Because that would have been deeply embarrassing.
That's one, isn't it? It's not good.
Yeah, this is kind of wedged in, so that should be okay. I don't think the flow base going to float. Should be alright now. See how that, sorry. It's a mess, sorry about that.
It's a real process to this.
That's terrible.
Shall we go for the George?
There's good stuff flakes in the back.
I think it's okay. I've got a feeling it's going to sink anyway, so I'm going to take it off really slow. And then.
It'll definitely float.
Almost everything.
I know, it is actually, isn't it? It feels really heavy though.
It's not rock. It's just easy. George, you want to lay some?
Sorry, mate?
You want to lay some?
Yeah, yeah.
We'll blow them all down.
Yeah, I know.
I'm disappointed when he just said it wasn't me.
I was so stressed getting here because my car didn't work. So thanks for reminding me. Yeah, I only changed the battery. I got bought a new battery for it, and it's not an old car, is it?
Not responsible.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got it in. Come. Ready?
Okay.
Where's Honda SP Red Mini?
Oh, a little bit. Okay, well that fills up. I'll move the camera so people can get a better. Say hello, Geordie Scoper. Make sure you subscribe. So there we go, guys. There's the escape planted. Now we're going to fill up. You're welcome to stay to the end of the stream if you like to watch. How's this? Is this just mains tap water or? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool.
No, it's all left in a barrel.
Yeah.
That's treated.
Let's check out the live chat. Boom.
Can I ask about water temperatures when you're doing big water changes? How do you like mitigate temperature swings? Fish are sensitive to it.
Sorry, I absolutely wasn't listening to a word of that. I have to confess. I was just looking at all the troll comments. You're rubbish! Yeah, thanks. It's the best bit of a game you've ever done. Sorry, what was the question?
About when you're doing large water changes, how do you mitigate temperature swings?
Good question. Mark, how do you... I personally have a submersible pump in my kitchen with a bucket, and the bucket's filling up at the right temperature, so I've got a mixer tap, and then I'll pump from that bucket as it's filling up directly from the bucket into the tank.
And then do you dose and do
Yeah.
the prime stuff up after, like directly into the tank?
Yeah.
I've got an outside tap in my little studio, and that's got a thermostatic valve on, So it's always it's roughly about 25 degrees by the time it mixes with the cooler water in the tank. Pretty much stays where it should be, 24, 25.
So I saw Mark's video on how he did it, so I got this TMP valve installed.
Hands up to Stephen, pay for it, Stephen.
Oh. So literally it's hot water up from the boiler, turn valve to an outside tap. It didn't limit to an outside tap, so those can go to like 25 degrees. My tank went to 22. It goes from 30, because it's looked at our house, goes through 30 metres of hose pipe, straight in. From an 80% water change, the tank goes from 22 to 23, that's it.
Oh, wow.
I think it mixes with the cooler water, so it just the warm water cools as soon as it hits it.
But it's because I've got, it's just shy of a 300 litre tank, and I can do an 80% water change, all maintenance in half an hour. It's a dream. That's why I do 2 a week.
What you've got to look for, your thermostatic valves, a lot of them start at 28 degrees, is that right, Stephen? 28? There's a couple of companies who start from 25.
Okay.
So obviously there's loads.
Yeah, I generally.
You can tweak them down as well. If you know what you're doing, then you can actually take the lids off them and manually calibrate them down to a lower temperature than what they would say you can get down to.
Thank you.
It's definitely worth it. I will do that.
Should you start a business here?
What time are we on anyway? What time?
20 minutes.
Oh, it's past my bedtime.
Is there anything that you found when getting stressed with it that helps to calm you down with it? If it's not quite
With
where
scoping?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I have to take a complete break away from it and take a dog for a walk or go for a run. Just have a complete break. Sometimes it's hard to do that because you're so in the moment and you're like desperate to fix it. But actually it can be quite counterproductive to do that, and you end up making more mistakes because you're frustrated and you're not in the mindset to fix it properly. So for me personally, breathing exercise is really helpful. It's a really good one, but the basic principle is if you breathe out more than you're breathing in, you relax, and if you breathe in more than you breathe out, you become more alert. So that's something I often do, breathing exercises to calm myself down. But walking the dog, that's really helpful. I take Tommy for a walk. But it's more frustrating under pressure because you put yourself under pressure. So because I do a lot of stuff in front of camera or in front of people, it's a more high pressure environment. But if you're doing it at home on your own, then ideally you should be, in doing it in an environment that's conducive to being, quite relaxed and enjoy the process. Set it all out neatly. I know we're working in the right mess here, but just I'm going to put this on before I lose it. Just kind of take deliberate time out to do it. Don't see it as something, I've got to set the fish tank today, as a chore. See it as, I'm really excited to set the fish tank today. I'm going to dedicate 4 hours of my time to do it, and I want to get these things done. But if I don't get those things done, that's okay, because I can just do it again tomorrow. And just be kind to yourself. And if you're a beginner, the biggest tip I can suggest to do, and it's to do with mindset, it's not actually to do any tips and tricks, it's just to lean in to the disappointment. And it's really hard to do, right? Because, like I say, with social media, bombarded with all these perfect images and these aspirational and inspirational aquascapes, but we all started somewhere, and it's really easy to get disheartened when you don't achieve your perceived idea of what success looks like, and that can be massively biased because you're bombarded. Like I say, a lot of people are on social media all the time. It's addictive, right? Instagram, Facebook, it's all dopamine, and if you're consuming so much of that content, on a daily basis, you automatically may compare your stuff to that, and that's the wrong place to be. You should be focus on the thing that you're doing for yourself first, and if you enjoy it and you're having success with it, then think about sharing it then. Try not to seek, it's easy to say, but try not to seek validation for your work, especially your creative work, externally. So is that like a boredom thing? Just to boring. Boring alert. Yeah, so try not to seek too much validation externally for your work. So by all means share it on Instagram or whatever, but don't count on the likes and the comments to fulfill you. It's the aquascape that should fulfill you.
It's more personal than
just
your art register. It's
exactly. Yeah, and it's your hobby, and do it for yourself first and foremost. You know, I fell into the trap of people pleasing, constantly seeking approval, and that comes from, you know, I can get super deep about it, about childhood trauma and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's quite ironic that I'm only now understanding that what I do is good enough for me, you know, and people can't believe, but you know, I still look at my work, or I still see myself in a workshop environment, and I still get imposter syndrome. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. It's like someone's going to come through that door and say, "What the hell are you doing here, George? You haven't got a clue what you're doing," and turf you out, and that's a real big issue for a lot of people.
Do you find even though you get a lot of positives, say, when you feel escapes or you get a lot of positives on social media, you're your worst critic, so that gets to you. That's what happens.
Yeah,
I read the praise, it's like.
Yeah, and that is an issue that I have had to deal with in the past, but I've become a lot more kind to myself, and that's quite hard to do. But you have to. Let's get quite deep, but you have to understand that the vast majority of people in this world are good, and they want the best for most people, and it's really easy to focus on the negative. And so I'll post a photo or whatever, and you know, we'll get X amount of nice comments, and then we'll get one nasty comment. And yeah, and as a human being, we're tribal creatures, and we're designed to be comfortable in a social environment around other people. And if there's any chance that we're going to get chucked out of that tribe, it triggers a fear response. We don't live in tribes and caves, and we don't hunt and gather anymore, but we do live in communities, and now we have this thing in our hand, which enables us to have communities of millions of people. And the noise is so big now from the few negatives that it can kind of overwhelm us. So it's really important to be grateful for the positive stuff and take the negative stuff with a pinch of salt, because that's all it is.
It's really, I appreciate all the positive comments and these comments like that.
Yeah.
If I talk about comments on YouTube, it's always like the worst one I've had.
Yeah.
I always talk about that, I focus on that.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to say is, because when I started out, was Mark telling me, I had a lot of issues with, obviously, diatoms, stack or the whole, I had everything. And I was, tank is now perfect, it's looking really straight. Follow your advice that when you tank, you can see algae with the second sea.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Don't do what I was doing, with the magnifying glass, it's a spot there, I'm freaking over it.
Yeah.
And then a great atmosphere, I wasn't much next to embarrassing, because in this room, he put into a picture of one of the scouts on his like algae issues.
Yeah.
This guy's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I just something else to say, instead of like put on Instagram, other social media all the way.
Yeah.
Because it just made that, it's not just me.
Yeah.
And there's issues. Everybody has issues.
Yeah. And people need to know that. And I wish people, especially people in a position of influence and leadership, share the problems as well as the successes. That's where the real magic happens. That's when you gain real respect of people, not by showing the best of yourself all the time, because that's not authentic. Water's nice and clear, no floating wood. It's always good for a start.
Just crank the other hose up, and we'll give it a few seconds churning over, and then put a secondary one on there to fill up faster.
Yeah, sounds good, mate.
How the podcast coming along, George?
Oh, stop asking me about podcasts. It's not at the moment.
No.
No. There's no excuse really. I was going to come up with a really long excuse. Well, I've not done a podcast for a while, but it's just excuses. I've got better things to do with my time. That's the reason. Yeah. I know they're popular, and I know people really appreciate them. But it's all about balancing priorities, and I've got a lot of projects, a lot of plates spinning.
I personally find it a visual subject, and it's just not one I've been able to
Get into.
It's visual, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a visual topic. Yeah, I actually do a lot of learning through hearing. I listen to podcasts and audiobooks all the time. But yeah, aquascaping, yeah, of course, very visual.
I'll try and read that last videos. I want to hear where it was up as a voice.
Thought you were just listening to Pantera, everybody's scared.
Oh yeah. That's what I do.
Thought it wasn't for copyright on YouTube.
Do you ever use RO in any of your tanks, or just
Tap water, yeah.
I started with RO.
I don't. Yeah, I would use it if I was keeping like really soft water fish that needed it. If to replicate their environment, going back to taking care of the animals the best we can. But the fish I keep are captive bred, tank bred, in hard water, so that's fine. Most plants are fine in hard water. You generally need a lot more CO2 to get the equivalent growth with hard water versus soft water. That's the biggest thing I would observe.
That's a good point, because we've got hard water.
Yeah.
What would you say your big guess was? How long would you need to come on to get a nice line grain?
I don't. Going back to just like observing the plants, I don't even use drop checkers. It's all like instinct. But rough rule of thumb for a high-tech, high-energy setup, I'd go for sort of 1 bubble per second per 50 litres to start with of aquarium water. But it depends on the bubble counter. Not all bubbles are the same. It depends on your lighting, your plants. But yeah.
Put 4 in 3.5 hours before the lights come on.
Yeah, that's crazy. I only have mine come on an hour before the lights. The CO2, yeah. Philippe Oliveira, he has his come on with the lights. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I completely understand the logic behind getting your CO2 to build up before the lights come on, but I'm not sure if it's actually that important. I think the plants need a certain amount of light period before they can start actively photosynthesizing anyway. Yeah. So I wonder, and I think some plants need more CO2 than others, and it's such a complex system, isn't it?
T-shirt, not all CO2 bubbles are the same size.
Yeah, that's a good t-shirt. I'm thinking of another one. What do I say all the time? Hardscape is the backbone of the layout. Okay, start off with this, what else? Plants and
on the back of your t-shirt instead of the front.
Plants and algae are always in competition with each other.
I'm putting some sort of copyright right on that. Plants versus algae.
Yeah. I have got an idea, a merch idea. Who remembers Top Trumps, the card game? Yeah. Remember that? Aquatic plants, Top Trumps.
Oh, yeah.
You had it here first.
The one with the crystals link.
Absolutely, and Microsorum. At my wedding, my second one, the best one. Hi Emma, is Emma watching? We had round tables. I think there was 8 or 10, and they're all named after aquarium plants. I was on Microsorum table. Yeah. All the losers won Lobelia.
What's wrong with Laboon?
Terrible.
Laboon can't announce.
And then there's one guy on his own and the Utricularia. They were crying. It just like melted.
All of our wedding tables are named after different potatoes because my wife's Irish.
Oh wow.
What is it about Lobelia?
It's just a joke, I don't know. I just don't like it. I just don't like the look of it. It's a classic plant. It's one of the oldest aquarium plants around.
So when most people do that, the rest of the carpet comes up. Because it's like running the one bit back in.
Yeah. Ah.
Bags dragging.
Nope.
Should be alright, I'm sure.
So my maintenance routine now would be a daily water change for the first week, every other day for the second week, every third day for the third week, and then after 4 weeks you can go to one water change a week. There'll typically be at least 50% water change. And the reason for that is just diluting all of the stuff that's going to cause algae. So the soil's going to be leaching nutrients, the plants are going to be leaching nutrients from when they were grown in the hydroponic systems. The tank is like not balanced at all. All the plants are kind of going through transition. They're using a lot of energy to transform themselves from their underwater condition, whether that was in a 1-2 grow cup or in a pot grown in a greenhouse. You know, they're using a lot of energy trying to convert to their new home. During that kind of period, they're just leaving the door open to algae, and one of the best ways to mitigate the algae is to do those huge water changes. Yeah. And so that's why I do the daily water changes for the first week. It really does help to minimise those algae issues. I'd do at least every other day if you could. And then, because we've got a lot of tissue culture plants in here, I would probably start dosing some fertilisers from day one. Probably in this tank I'll probably do something like 4 or 5 squirts, Tropica specialised, every day, just after the water change. Otherwise you're just diluting your ferts, so do your fertilisers right after your water change. And then during those first few weeks you'll start to notice the plants will kind of, well, the first few days the plants will upright themselves as they grow towards the light, and you'll notice any like howlers, you know, any kind of plants that shouldn't be there. You put something a bit wrong and that'll be really obvious because they'll start to kind of look more like they should. And then what I do in those first few days, first few weeks, just make any minor adjustments that you need to, and then always make sure after you've done any adjustments, especially if you disturb the soil, do your big water change after that. Always do your water change the last part of the maintenance process, so any disturbances that are going on in the aquarium that are dislodging any crap, any waste organics, any detritus, they're hopefully going to be removed as part of the water change and not trigger potential algae.
Do you keep the lighter lower for the first?
Yeah, it's a good call. Often, depending on the system you've got, how bright the light is, it's quite a common thing to start with half power and then build up gradually. Some people will start off with a smaller photo period, maybe 4 or 6 hours, but I generally keep it 8 hours consistent, and the lights I've got at the moment, they're just all not very bright, so just 100% light. Although the Starline 85, I've got 4, that's got 1 tube in it at the moment, so it's quite dark. I've got 4 in there, so it's quite, obviously 4 times as bright, pretty much. Here then, mate. Yeah. At least the wood's not floating. Should we take that off after afterwards? Should we get a volunteer to take it off? Otherwise we run away. Yeah, I'm not going to touch it. It's not worth the risk, is it?
What you also doing, I need to fill the problem.
Yeah, so different layout. Interesting. Lots of complex textures going on in the foreground. This is going to form a solid carpet. There'll be little pops of colour with the Hygrophila Paraguay. This Paraguay is going to grow nicely up against the rock. And you've got this the airtime hydropiper that's going to be the main carpeting species. And then you're going to have pops of the Eleocharis mili, of course the Helanthium tenellum. You might want to take that out long term. It's going to take over everything. And then crypts in the back. Got a mixture of the Wenditii tropica, Wenditii green, Eusperiana, and Balansai. The Balansai and the Eusperiana will fill up the background, so you have this tall curtain of crypts all the way filling up the back. And then down to the kind of mid-ground crypts, the Tropica, Wenditii and the Wenditii green. And then your foreground complex mix here, and then nice epiphytes. This Bobitis is going to kind of drip down here, and then you've got your moss going to creep all over the wood, and then your Beaker Belandra is just going to be nice and slow and creep everywhere, hopefully. That's it. Yeah, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed myself. I hope you guys have too. Sorry if you expected a new Agumi. But there's a lesson there. You know, sometimes things don't work out how you expect. Any questions? Hold on. Raffle. Okay, I'm going to say cheerio to the YouTubers. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care, keep on safe. Here we go. See you down the pub.